Good morning and welcome to the Mike Graham Show. I'm Mike Graham and this, of course, is the Mike Graham Show. It's coming up to 7 o'clock. It is Thursday the 30th of April, the last day of April. And, you know, normally speaking, we would be having a laugh this morning. We would be talking about all manner of things related to Keir Starmer and how useless he is and how Ed Miliband wants to ban your tumble dryers and how basically, you know, the world is going to hell in a handcart. But actually, it's a bit of a serious one this morning because of what happened yesterday. I was actually surprisingly, interestingly enough, doing a podcast yesterday afternoon. After we finished doing the show yesterday, I ended up doing a podcast with a guy who we've had on the show on a regular basis, and his name is Ariel, and he does a podcast based in Israel. And we were talking about the situation in Britain vis-a-vis Jewish people, vis-a-vis, you know, exactly why so many Jewish people are frightened of living here at the moment, wondering whether or not they want to stay living in Britain. Ariel Whitman is his name, and the podcast will probably go out in the next few days. I actually mentioned Golders Green. I said, you know, one of the things that I know is that I grew up in North London many, many years ago. Golders Green was always a very colourful Jewish neighbourhood in North London between sort of, you know, Hampstead and Hendon, packed between the A1 and the A41. I mean, you know, I can describe it in any number of ways. And I said, you know, there are people who live there now who are living in fear because they are sort of targeted by horrible, ghastly Islamists. And sure enough, as soon as we finished the podcast and I got stuck in traffic trying to leave here, I got a message from him saying, I can't believe what's just happened. And I said, what's just happened? And he said, somebody in Golders Green has been stabbed by a crazed Islamist who's run down the street carrying a knife and just decided to attack people at random because they're Jewish. And it turns out that the man who was stopped by the police, thankfully, before he could kill anyone, is a Somalian. And it then turns out that he's a Somalian who is a British national. And I thought to myself, how is this possible? How have we got to a point where we've got people living in this country who hate Jews so much that they want to stab them to death? They want to kill them. And how, I thought to myself, has this scumbag become a British national? So we're going to be exploring all of that this morning. And yes, of course, we'll be talking about other things as well. And yes, of course, we will get to a slightly lighter part of the show a bit later on. But we're joined, first of all, this morning by William Yarwood. William, very good morning to you.
Morning, Mike.
Thanks for joining us from the Taxpayers Alliance, of course. William, a man who's very, very good at collecting statistics, and I'm going to be asking him about some of the problems with this story in terms of, you know, how many Somalians are living in this country? Why are we allowing these people to come in and live here? And why are we allowing people who hate Jews to live amongst us? What on earth is going on? William, good to see you. Thanks for coming in. It's a bit somber this morning. You know, normally we have a bit more fun than this, but we're not going to do it this morning. No. Lots of stories on the front pages. UK anti-Semitism out of control after Jews knifed is the front page of the Times. Anti-Semitism out of control in the UK, warns Israel. And on the front page of the Sun, a very powerful image of this guy walking down the street with a knife in his right hand. He's being described as a terrorist, and he is a terrorist. Yep. But so much fury right now at the rise in attacks on Jewish people. And Britain has become a kind of centre now for anti-Semitic, anti-Jewish attacks by crazed Islamists. And as I said, you know, who the hell gave this guy British nationality?
I know, right? I mean, that's the problem, is that you see these kind of attacks and you think, I mean, we saw the pictures of him getting arrested, and my immediate thought, and this picture was released, I believe, just before the details came out. Right. And my immediate thought was, this guy's Somalian, just because of how he looks. Because he looks Somalian, right? Yeah. They do have a distinct look.
Because, I mean, that's the thing. We've all become quite good now, haven't we, at actually identifying where people come from.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you can tell what Somalians look like. You can tell what Eritreans look like. You can tell what, you know, people from Nigeria look like. Yeah. You know, we've become expert at all of that.
Yeah, quite. And when I saw it and it came out that he was a 41-year-old Somalian, I obviously wasn't surprised, but obviously, like you said, the thing I was surprised most by was that this guy was a British national, meaning that he's been given indefinite leave to remain. Yes. And my main question is, what value has this guy ever added to British society? This guy is clearly not someone who's, you know, a contributing, working, tax-paying member of British society. Yeah. It says he's got mental health illnesses, whatever that might mean.
I couldn't care less.
And I couldn't care less, exactly.
I just wish the police had shot him.
And here's the thing, actually, and when the police did arrest him, the thing that irritated me, there's so many things that irked me about yesterday, and I'm sure we'll get onto some of them, Mike, but the thing that irritated me the most was seeing all the so-called sensiblist people and some in left-wing people coming out on Twitter and quote tweeting the video where the police were quite rightly giving this guy a good kicking because he wasn't dropping the knife.
Right.
And they were saying, oh, police brutality, you know, they tasered a mentally ill man and blah, blah, blah. And I thought, this is what people call suicidal empathy, right?
Yeah.
They're empathizing with someone who is objectively a terrorist, someone who's just literally stabbed a bunch of people in Golders Green.
Random.
And also actually on purpose because they were Jewish, right? On purpose because they were Jewish. And their main concern is the way the police are treating him. And I frankly think, actually, do you know what? He actually got off quite lightly in terms of the way the police treated him. You know, in a world run by me and you, Mike, I'm sure, you know, as you just said, the police would be treating him a lot worse. Well, we would have shot him immediately.
He just shot him and killed him. I mean, people were saying at the weekend at the Donald Trump assassination attempt, people were outraged because he was able to get off five rounds, I think, before the police kind of got him down on the ground. And people were saying, why didn't the Secret Service kill him? You know, and that's the American response. And that should be our response. You know, there's a picture, as I say, this picture on the front page of The Sun. Terrifying, really, if you see a guy like that walking towards you. I mean, I've often thought to myself, what would I do in that situation? And I'd like to think that I would tackle him. I'd like to think that I would, you know, disarm him. I'd like to think that I would sort of make sure that he got down on the ground and he couldn't hurt anybody. But, you know, for an awful lot of people who don't feel as crazed as I do about it, you know, it's terrifying.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
And especially when it comes to women, to children, to elderly people, to disabled people who can't do that kind of stuff. They are helpless in the face of someone like that walking down the street, right? And even like for the men, you know, I don't know how I'd react because your body would go into some kind of shock mode. You probably wouldn't be thinking rationally or thinking straight. Because when you see a man like that walking down in your area, holding a knife, obviously like with crazed intent, you just don't know how to react, and 9 times out of 10, probably the safest thing to do is kind of just run away.
Just to run away,
But I have to say, I have to give a lot of credit to the I think it was a Jewish security officer who tackled him to the ground before the police could. So you know,
but this is the thing.
Hero,
I mean, as I say, I mean, I was, you know, by a bizarre coincidence, I was doing a podcast with this guy yesterday, Ariel, who was discussing with me how many Jewish friends of his knew that. Oh, sorry, have we got something there? Have we got a clip from him, by the way?
It's on its way.
Oh, it's on its way, yeah. Where, you know, we were talking about the number of Jewish friends of his who live in London, who are actually leaving London and or have left London and have gone to Israel because they feel it's a safer place for them to live, notwithstanding the fact that they're getting bombarded with missiles and drone attacks every single day from Iran and or, you know, Lebanon and or, you know, Gaza. But they actually feel safer in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv than they do in Golders Green.
And that tells you something,
which is incredible, isn't it?
That tells you something. I mean, this tackle, so I've got a Jewish friend who I was spending some time with yesterday, and his parents apparently live about 3 minutes from where the attack happened. Yeah. About 3 minutes from the attack happened, so it was so raw for him. And his reaction, I remember is just extremely deflated. Yeah. Sort of, you know, helpless almost, doesn't know what to do. You know, obviously, you know, he's thrilled and happy that none of his family were caught up and are hurt. But that's his community, right? You know, that's where he lives. And a lot of British Jews live in Golders Green. There's a high concentration of British Jews in Golders Green. And also you have to imagine like British Jews actually just aren't that big of a group in the United Kingdom overall.
It's a very small number.
It's a very small
but it's always
number.
Been the same amount of people, whereas the Muslim community has grown exponentially.
Grown.
You know, to millions and millions and millions of people.
Exactly, and taken over entire areas. Yeah. While Golders Green and some areas in the north, they've pretty much always remained areas where Jews feel comfortable living. But unfortunately for them, that means they have become targets for people like this, where they can just go into an area, know for a fact that everyone in there is Jewish, and basically just stab at random because they know they're going to get Jews. I mean, the video of this guy stabbing the elderly gentleman at the bus stop, I believe the bus stop, the guy did not have his yarmulke on. He didn't have it, and as soon as he put it on, he immediately switched into action and immediately stabbed him. Yeah. So this guy was clearly going after Jews specifically, and he knows that in Golders Green, he's going to be able to find them relatively easily. And that's beyond depressing because, you know, if you live in an area amongst your family who you all celebrate the same religion and all that kind of stuff, you shouldn't have to live in fear about someone walking through your area who doesn't clearly live in Golders Green, coming in and then just stabbing your grandparents and stabbing your parents.
And also the fact that really annoyed me, as I say, and I put this out and I was not, you know, I didn't hold back, I'm afraid. If anyone was offended by what I tweeted out last night, I'm terribly sorry, but I'm not really. how the hell is this guy a British national?
Yeah.
Because it said he was a Somalian, but he was a British national. Because now the police have been forced after Southport to actually identify who these people are.
Yeah.
Because if they hadn't said that, people would be going, sorry, would you mind actually? I mean, you can see the picture of him.
Yeah.
You know, he's clearly a black man. He's clearly, I wouldn't know necessarily he was Somalian, but you could surmise that he's from that part of the world, right? But the idea that he is somehow a British national had me questioning my own kind of country. Like, how has this man come to this country? How has he been granted British citizenship or British nationality?
Yeah.
And is he on benefits? You know, I don't know. I think you've got some stats on the Somalian community, right?
I question it because obviously one of the arguments usually in favour of immigration is it adds value and productivity to the United Kingdom. But I think that
diversity is our strength.
Indeed, but the issue is
Piss
that
off.
I think over the last 10 to 15 years, if not longer, that immigration argument is completely dead because we've seen constantly not just how many foreign nationals are on welfare, but actually how many foreign nationals are in social housing. And to do with Somalia specifically, around 72% of all Somalian households are in social housing in England and Wales. 72%.
So we're subsidising their lives.
Yeah, precisely, and that's significantly above. That's about 4 times higher than the general population rate of about 16.6%.
Yeah.
So they are disproportionately in social housing, which is obviously taxpayer funded, subsidised, and actually in areas like London, where of course young people can't get on the housing ladder. You know, people are having to struggle with paying rents, while these people get imported into the country. They don't work.
And it also does it not give the lie to this idea that diversity helps us. You know, it means that we import all these people. And look at all the great jobs they do. You know, they're working in NHS, they're working in shops, they're working in industries where we can't employ local people because nobody in Britain wants to do the jobs. No, what we're importing is a Jew-hating, crazed, knife-wielding maniac.
Yeah, precisely.
And that's what we're importing. And not only are we importing it, we're giving them bloody British nationality.
Yeah, precisely.
I'm sick to death of it, frankly.
And the response from this will be the usual thoughts and prayers nonsense, but it will also be the sort of don't look back in anger line. They'll do that again.
Well, I mean, as you said, a number of people, in fact, Cliff, who's a friend of mine, has sent me this, an extraordinary situation, how areas of the mainstream media are drawing attention to the method of arresting this scumbag in Golders Green. How dare they kick him? One person even mentioned George Floyd, for heaven's sake. You know, this guy was killing, would have killed people, would have killed more people. But is it any wonder when you see the response of our politicians? We're going to show you a couple of clips here which will enrage you and will enrage all of you. Because what we have now is a country governed by complete and utter cardboard cutout wankers. Have a look at this. This is Keir Starmer on the news that this guy was running rampant in Golders Green, killing people.
Well, I've just held a COBRA meeting, bringing together all the relevant partners, including the Home Secretary, the London Mayor, the Metropolitan Commissioner, to coordinate our response and to look at enhanced security. I've also spoken to CST. There is enhanced funding already in place. We need to increase that to give the level of protection that is needed. But of course, it's our responsibility to coordinate the immediate response here to this appalling attack, to ensure security is in place, to take other measures. I'm holding a meeting tomorrow with the criminal justice agencies to make sure that we can have effective and swift justice in these cases. But we do have to recognise the levels of anxiety and concern there are, that I know about, in terms of the Jewish community feeling very much exposed and vulnerable, feeling they've got to hide their identity, sometimes in the health service, sometimes at school, on the streets where they live. And it's our job to make sure that they feel safe and secure. It's our job to make sure that we absolutely deal with the roots of anti-Semitism and extremism. That is what we will do.
Yeah, it's not your job to keep people safe. It's your job to stop people coming into the country who are crazed killers, who hate Jewish people to such an extent that they will want to go on a rampage through a Jewish area, stabbing people. That's your job. You should stop letting them in. Even as we speak, William, there will be hundreds of these scumbags coming over the border from France, walking onto the beaches at Dover, having been helped to get here by Border Force.
Yes.
And then supplied with a very nice, cosy hotel room to live in. And who tomorrow, having been given pizza all night, and having been given the right to be allowed to live here, will go out on the rampage trying to kill Jewish people. You know, stop the bloody immigration problem.
Yeah.
Stop importing scumbag terrorists who hate Jews.
Yeah, because if you
stop it.
Because if you import the third world, you get the third world, quite frankly. And it's not just third world attitudes to Jews that these people have. It's third world attitudes to women, third world attitudes to Christianity, third world attitudes to sex. I mean, you know, and sexual contact. I mean, grooming gangs is a perfect example of this, Mike. You know, that perpetrated by, you know, majority Pakistani Muslim diaspora. And, you know, for years and years and years, that was seen as like, oh, you can't say that on live TV. Even though actually, to be honest with you, the Times actually did a very good job of getting that ball rolling and actually revealing that. And luckily, that more and more people feel comfortable talking about that now. But to go back to the diversity point, I'm actually going to say something. I might get in trouble for this, but I'll say it anyway, but because you want me to be candid, you want me to be as honest as possible.
Totally.
I don't think that multiculturalism and liberal democracy are fundamentally compatible. No. I don't think they're compatible.
Not. Well, we can see that now. I think we every single day that we live, every single day that passes, we get closer and closer and closer to that belief that it's just not working.
It's just not compatible. And the reason it's not compatible is for a handful of reasons. Liberal democracy basically asserts that everyone has these kind of universal rights, and in a society you have rights to freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom of religion, freedom of association. The types of people that you import from the third world do not have that belief system. They believe in a very particularist and almost totalitarian belief system where basically their view is the correct view and it should be enforced like violently on other people by either state power, whatever it might be, or jihad or whatever it might be. And if you import people into a liberal democracy who don't share those values and those views, well, they're never going to integrate. And actually, with mass immigration, it makes the system worse because you import more and more of them, meaning there's less incentive to integrate, meaning they can all stay in areas and take over areas. You were saying earlier how the Muslim population has significantly increased. I mean, look at areas in Birmingham, which have completely changed over the last 50 years or so. And basically, those areas are effectively no longer English.
Well, look at Whitechapel in London, where you've got the tube station with the sign saying that it's Whitechapel Station in Urdu.
Precisely. And then you've got politicians in Whitechapel who are, you know, aligned or even running for seats in the Bangladeshi parliament for Bangladeshi parties, right? That kind of sectarian politics is simply a symptom of multiculturalism, and I think it's important that we mention that because often we talk about sectarian politics and it's important to talk about it, but very few people talk about the root cause, which is mass immigration and also our tolerance towards multicultural, state-enforced multiculturalism, which while politicians before have complained about, I remember even David Cameron back in the day complaining about state-enforced multiculturalism, but none of them have basically done anything about it because they're the ones who imported these people and actually created the problem in the first place.
They've also encouraged it because the word on the street, if you were, you know, a sort of liberal intellectual, was, oh, it's brilliant, you know, it's really, really cool that, you know, we've got, you know, I was talking to my daughter yesterday in the Middle East where she lives, and I said, how do you know somebody's Lebanese? They're running a restaurant in London. You know, basically, Lebanon has completely sort of picked up its kit and moved to the UK. You know, everywhere you walk. And I'm quite a fan of Lebanese food. It's great. But, you know, how many Lebanese people are actually living here? And how many of them are sympathetic to Hezbollah? How many of them hate Israel? How many of them would turn on Israel if they had the chance? How many of them would stab somebody from Israel or somebody from a Jewish community if they could do it? How many people have come here from Palestine? You know, how many people have we allowed in from countries which actually are diametrically opposed to Israel and will do harm to anybody that they think is associated with the Jewish community?
Precisely.
And that's what we've imported.
Yeah, exactly. And also then we've allowed it to be whipped up in these hate marches that go on in Whitehall, right? With this coalition between Islamists who do wave like ISIS flags, the flag of the Iranian state. You know, they are like genuinely supporting terrorist groups. The Taliban flags. I mean, they should all bugger off,
as far as I'm concerned. Get the hell out of my country. I don't want you here. I don't want you messing with my good friends from the Jewish community. And, you know, if all you want to do is do harm and wave an ISIS flag, then just get out of the country.
Yeah, precisely. And
go back to your shithole and live there.
Yeah, precisely. And actually, I was quite happy with the Shadow Home Secretary yesterday who said he believes that anybody who waves those kind of flags in public, anyone who verbalises support for it, either online or in person, should be automatically deported. And actually, that's a piece of legislation. That's something you could do. But obviously, this current government's not going to do that because, you know, they'd possibly be deporting votes.
Yeah, well, that's the other problem, isn't it, for them? Let's look at what Sadiq Khan had to say, who similarly, like Keir Starmer, mealy-mouthed and completely and utterly two-faced about the problem.
I've been in contact throughout the day with the Met Police Commissioner with the head of counter-terror policing and with members of the local community. I want to thank the heroic police officers, Jewish volunteers who volunteer for Shomrin and Hatzalah for their response to the actions of this terrorists. But for their response, more Jewish Londoners may well have been attacked and may well have been injured even worse than the two have been attacked today. I'm angry, I'm appalled, I'm disgusted. The Jewish people are going to bed frightened. They're waking up frightened. They're living their lives frightened. This is no way to live. I'm appalled and angry that over the last few weeks we've seen places of worship attacked because they are Jewish, buildings attacked because they are Jewish, Londoners attacked because they are Jewish. It is incredibly important that those of us that aren't Jewish show allyship and support to our Jewish brothers and sisters. We've seen over the last few weeks Londoners scared because they are Jewish. And what the community will see over the course of the next few days is additional police officers in and around the community, but more support and solidarity from non-Jewish Londoners as well.
I think the most shocking thing, both for the Jewish community and for Londoners and the wider community, will be that this has happened so much in recent weeks. Buildings have been attacked, ambulances have been set alight, all in the Jewish community in the last 4 weeks. And this morning there was a man running down the street with a knife attacking people who were identifiably Jewish.
I've lived in London all my life. There's been anti-Semitism faced by Londoners throughout my life and actually for the last few decades. I've never seen the sort of fear my friends, colleagues and neighbours are feeling because they are Jewish. I've never experienced.
I mean, this kind of crocodile tears from people like Sadiq Khan and Keir Starmer doesn't wash, I think, with most people watching that. They'll say, and we're seeing it on the chat this morning on YouTube, basically nobody believes a word they say. Everybody knows that they've encouraged anti-Semitism. That, you know, everybody knows that in the Labour Party itself, anti-Semitism was a badge of honour.
Yes, it was.
You know, when you were working under Jeremy Corbyn, in order to get, you know, success in the party, if you came out and said things that were anti-Israeli or anti-Semitic, you got promoted. So these people are responsible. And there's a message there from Nefertari. Khan and Starmer caused this. They did. They've allowed this anti-Semitism to grow and to grow and to grow. And Israel now, as a nation, as it says on the front page of the Mail this morning, Israel told the Prime Minister he can no longer claim this is under control. Chief Rabbi Sir Ephraim Mirvis demanded meaningful action. Donald Trump's anti-Semitism czar said enough is enough. You know, people are looking at Britain and going, what's happened to it? What has happened to this country? How is it possible that we have become a safe haven for terrorists, for Muslim scumbags, for, you know, ISIS supporters, for Hamas supporters, and ordinary, decent, working-class Jewish people can't walk down the streets in safety? How have we become that country?
I think there's a combination of things. I think, first of all, there's the malaise of what I said earlier, which is suicidal empathy. We've had governments for years who basically think that the job of Britain is to essentially act as a sort of NGO for the third world, in the sense that we don't just send them foreign aid, we also allow them to come here and live off our welfare state, our national welfare state, is turned into an international
This guy will be on welfare, no doubt.
Absolutely.
Right.
I mean, the amount of foreign nationals claiming universal credit, I believe it's gone up like 44% in the last few years. I mean, that's a dramatic increase, mainly thanks to immigration under the last Conservative government. There's also the element that since we left the European Union, the government basically decided to change its immigration views from importing people from Europe, Romanians, Bulgarians, whatever, who, by the way, most of them actually ended up going home in the end because they made their money, their countries got back on their feet and they thought, you know what, actually, UK's not safe anymore, I'm going home. And what we've done essentially is import people from nations and cultures which have no relation to us, which are hostile to us in some cases, and actually hostile to the people that live here, not just Jews, but Christians, white people, you know, Western civilization more broadly. And I think
so. What are they doing here then?
What are they doing here?
Why are they coming to a place that they detest?
Because they think that we're soft touch. I think a lot of the time we're soft touch. We won't arrest them at these rallies they go to, but we'll arrest people for saying things on Twitter, of course. We will give them money, and then you know, Labour Party politicians will lobby for things like such as the 2-child benefit cap to be lifted, so that, you know, people in their areas who are perhaps on welfare who have a lot of kids, and a lot of these people do have a lot of kids, disproportionately so, can get more money. And also they think that, in the Islamist sense, they have their political theology is ultimately imperialistic. It's imperialistic. It believes that basically you have to go to these countries and take them over and essentially outbreed a population, so that then essentially you become the majority, which means then you can hold essentially the whip hand over the government to give them what you want. And that's a depressing state we're in.
So do you think this is a deliberate act then by some of these people who are coming to this country in order to basically take it over?
Yeah, I think it's deliberate. I think for some communities it's definitely deliberate. For other communities it isn't. I think for other communities they've just simply taken an advantage that they've been given by, United Kingdom governments for a very long time. But I think there is a certain section of the people that we've imported who have come here with a view to cause terror and trouble.
And they're probably told this when they go to their local mosque, wherever it is, by the hate preachers that operate in these mosques.
Yeah.
Because I'm not buying anymore, I'm afraid, this ridiculous crap that, Islam's a peaceful religion. Well, if it's a peaceful religion, how come there's a bloke walking down the street with a knife stabbing Jewish people because they're not Islamic? How come you get one story after another about these hate preachers in mosques who tell you that if you're not an Islamist, you are somehow unclean and therefore you should be done away with. And if you're a white woman, you should be raped and possibly killed and murdered on the basis that, you're unclean. I'm sick to death of it. Why the bloody hell do we have to embrace these wankers? These fucking... I'm sorry. I don't want to swear, but it's really difficult for me because I've lived in this country for a long time. I'm in my 7th decade of life, and I've never seen Britain in the grip of this kind of nonsense before. And it's getting worse.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I don't want it. I don't want it here.
No, I don't want it here either. I mean, I'm only in my 2nd decade of being alive, and I'm only what, 3rd decade. Yeah, that's correct.
I was slightly worried that you're in the taxpayers' and life.
Yeah,
I'm not sure how the decades work.
I had to get up at 5 o'clock this morning for you, Mike. I love doing it, but it doesn't mean I'm always...
I do it every day.
It doesn't mean I'm always on form.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, I don't want it here either. And the thing that irritates me the most is why on earth the progressive left and the feminist movement are not more concerned with this, because actually the biggest threat to them is not, right-wing nutcases like me, so to speak. It's people who want to come to this country and put them in burqas. It's people who want them to subjugate them, who want to remove
and
their
sure
equal rights.
They're not allowed to go to work, not allowed to go to school, not allowed to go to university.
I mean, you look what happened in Afghanistan when the Taliban took over. Like women were just immediately put back into a second-class citizenship status, essentially. And I don't know why people aren't more concerned about that. And also, you see it in the United Kingdom where women in those communities are treated like second-class citizens. And in a first world country, or supposedly first world country like the United Kingdom, that should not be happening. And those kind of people should either say, no, you either treat your wife, your woman, with respect, and you allow her to, enjoy the freedoms that she has in this country, or quite frankly, you should leave.
Or just go. Because what we've got is a sort of a series of apologists who have either been politicians or left-wing kind of feminist groups, all of whom go, oh no, we can't talk about that because they've got their own culture and it's okay for them to do that. They can do whatever they want. Well, no, they can't do whatever they bloody well want, because this is what the end result of it is. Is this scumbag walking down the street stabbing people? Yeah,
precisely. And one thing I also didn't see from people of my own age group, let's say, on Instagram and the like last night was they always love posting these pretty little collages when something happens in Gaza or some trendy, progressive activist does something like Greta Thunberg or whatever it might be. I saw nothing from a variety of my friends who are seriously very, very concerned about the way Gaza's being treated. I saw nothing about this attack on any of their Instagram stories. I saw nothing about it from their Facebooks. And it just makes you think that in reality these people just don't care because it was Jews who got killed. They just don't care.
Unfortunately, that is a huge problem in this country now, that the people on the left, who are not necessarily Islamists, but who are just left-wingers, believe that all that Israel does is bad and everybody who's their enemy is good. And that's a terrible place to be.
Terrible.
Let's have a look at a woman who I'd never heard of before called Sarah Sackman, who's the local Labour MP. For the area of Golders Green. She went there yesterday and people were not happy about it.
Commissioner, I just want to add a few words. What we've heard... what we've seen here on the streets of Golders Green today is appalling.
Yeah, we know that it's appalling. Thanks, Sarah, for pointing that out. Everybody knows what happened. Everybody knows that it's terrible. But what we need to know is why you allowed it to happen. Because you allowed it to happen. Because you allowed people to come to this country who hate Britain, who hate Jews, who hate democracy, who hate freedom. You know, these scumbags like this character, whatever his name is, from Somalia, shouldn't be here. It's as simple as that, isn't it?
So it's simple as that.
He should not be here.
And there's many more people in the country like him who perhaps haven't attacked anybody yet, but might do in the future, that also shouldn't be here. There's people who we've imported both legally and illegally, illegally they shouldn't be here, full stop. But there's also lots of people here legally, especially people who've come during the Boris wave over the last few years, who objectively shouldn't be here, not just because they're economically unproductive, not just because they'll be a drag on taxpayers, but because they pose a genuine threat to the Jewish community in Golders Green and elsewhere. They pose a genuine threat to the Christian community. They pose a genuine threat to young women, young girls, and they pose a genuine threat just to the way that our society is operated, and elements of society have become eroded, I think, over the last few years. Even just sort of basic things that you would expect in a first world country, like politeness, or like even little things like, I know it's a big thing now, but things like not playing your phone out loudly on a tube station. Little bits of politeness and things that we used to accept as sort of fact and just ways of living are completely deteriorated. And I'm afraid to say, I was on a train yesterday coming up from Cardiff. I'm afraid to say there was a Muslim woman on my train who was simply talking to seemingly her entire family on her phone out loud in the middle of a train in the quiet zone, Mike, without any care, in her own language, without any care for anyone else around her. And there's that element of, well, actually, this is our country. We don't do those things here. And if you're on a quiet part of the train, you respect other people.
For people
right, exactly.
in whose country you are adopting as your new home.
Exactly.
You know, I mean, if I went to live in France or something, you know, I wouldn't suddenly walk down the middle of a high street in you know, Perpignan and decide that, you know, I was going to start singing, you know, England songs or something. You know, you wouldn't do it.
Exactly.
You know, you behave as you would.
In Rome, as the Romans do.
I mean, I'm in the same boat. I mean, I get criticised all the time when I discuss this with members of my family. When I get on a bus in my neighbourhood in East London, and more often than not, there's somebody on the phone, as you say, talking very loudly. Usually somebody African, talking in some kind of African, you know, dialect, loudly into a phone. The sound is coming back out of the phone, and I'm like, is there anybody English anywhere near me? Is there anybody British walking around in London? Is there anybody getting on this bus who actually understands the laws of what we do?
Exactly.
Because it feels like we don't have that anymore.
Because also then, depressingly, Mike, it actually translates into our own behaviour, because we see that kind of behaviour, and some people implicitly think that's acceptable now, and then you have it all the time now. Like, I remember a while ago there was a white English guy on my train tube home, and he was just playing music out loud the entire way through. And I'm ashamed I didn't go up and say something, really, but you know, I don't know what he's going to do. Right? Is this guy mentally ill? Is he deranged? You know, he doesn't look that.
Because you don't want to put yourself in danger either.
Exactly.
But there is something very, very wrong with the way that British society has suddenly moved. And it's only really been in the last few years. It wasn't like this. Even 10 years ago, it wasn't like this, you know? It's
deteriorated.
And it's not going to get any better. I mean, we're looking at a couple of stories this morning as well, outside of the front page headlines about this terrible attack in Golders Green. But, you know, story in the Mail, page 26, desperate migrants tried to avoid huge queues by climbing over an embassy wall in Madrid yesterday, because the Spanish government have said that they are offering a 1-year renewable residence permit to 500,000 undocumented migrants, right? Now, they're all going to come over from Africa, obviously. They're either going to come across the Straits of Gibraltar or they're going to get there by some other means. But basically, as soon as you say we're going to give 500,000 visas out, what do you think is going to happen? About 4 million people are going to come looking for the 500,000 visas. And as they say, basically the government is now having trouble because crowds stormed the Gambian embassy in Spain after Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez launched an amnesty offering a 1-year renewable residence permit. And guess what's going to happen? They're going to come into Spain, and then they're going to keep moving. They're going to come from Spain into France. They're going to cross the border. They're going to get to Calais. They're going to get to those camps, which we've highlighted here on the show. And then they're going to come to Dover. And then they're going to be in Britain. So we're going to have a load more bloody Africans who all are scum coming here, taking our money, raping our women, stealing our phones, and then we're supposed to go, but isn't it wonderful to have cultural diversity? Well, bollocks is it, okay?
Yeah, and one of the arguments, I remember, to bring it back just a few years, one of the arguments actually that was underrated about leaving the European Union was there was this big Syrian migrant crisis at the time, I'm sure you remember, and various countries, including Germany, took tons of them in.
Yeah.
And then it turned
well,
out...
what Angela Merkel said was, if you're from Syria, you can just come in. So guess what? Everybody
No,
suddenly was from
did.
Syria.
Everyone came in.
Where are you from? Syria.
And what did that cause? That caused crimes, that caused thefts, it caused rapes, it caused public disorder. It was a drain on German taxpayers, of course.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons that actually one of the arguments to leave the European Union was because if these guys get EU citizenship, they have then a right to come to the United Kingdom when we were still part of the European Union. And actually, to be fair to David Cameron and that government, they barely let any Syrian refugees in, thank God. But the problem is that while they may have been okay with that back in those days, again, in 2019, post-2019, post-Boris Johnson winning, we just opened the floodgates effectively. 4 million people, like 4 million people over the course of those just 3 or 4 or 5 years came into the United Kingdom. And they're not all doctors. They're not all engineers.
Funny
they're not
that.
all funny that.
Yeah.
They're not all like high quality immigration. And that puts a burden not just on British taxpayers, but that puts a burden on society more broadly, where loads of people are not integrating, they're not speaking English, and also there's no incentive to do so. That creates enclaves, which creates division, which creates sectarian politics. And what you're seeing now, Mike, I think, not just with the horrible anti-Semitic attack yesterday, but also in places in elections like with Gorton and Denton, with elements of the Green Party. What you're seeing is that sectarian, for the final sort of manifestation of this kind of mass immigration is finally taking its root in our politics now with sectarianism, and they're sort of, using the Green Party as one of the ways to push their agendas. Well, and that should terrify absolutely everybody watching.
Imagine what's going to happen next Thursday, right? A week today, there's going to be people going to the polls. It will be probably a relatively low turnout, because it normally is. It might be a bit higher than usual because of the way that people are feeling right now. But, we are going to see, I would imagine, and I'm going to predict this now, a whole bunch of, pro-Gaza, pro-Islamist councillors getting into places all over the country, whether it be Birmingham, whether it be Bradford, whether it be Rochdale, whether it be Manchester, London, Tower Hamlets, all of that. And we are going to have to find ourselves being ruled by these scumbags who think the most important thing in the world is to do away with Jews and stab them and kill them and make Israel the pariah of the world.
Yeah.
They don't care about picking up your bins, or wondering how much council tax you're going to pay. No. What they're worried about is how much money they can siphon off from the public purse in order to fund their disgusting hatred of Israel.
Yeah, and that's the depressing part, is that it's seeped into not just national politics but local politics, like you said.
Yeah.
I mean, Moffat Ali, who's the deputy leader of the Green Party, he's a councillor.
Another scumbag.
And another scumbag, who was also, by the way, caught, I think it was revealed in the Times, he was caught sending messages and emails to members for the Green Party who had been caught being anti-Semitic and thrown out of the party. He was said to them to lawyer up, and we need to show that the Green Party, we're not going to take this. Yeah. So actually, even this so-called guy who stands on stage with Zach Polanski, and Zach Polanski goes on about being Jewish and all that kind of stuff, and they're all friendly and buddy. Yeah. Deep down, this guy hates Israel and hates Jews, so much so that he's willing to try and help the people that got kicked out of the Green Party for anti-Semitism to try and get back in the party. Because of his own political ideology. So, and it's appalling. And on another point, I think there's another serious point to make here, Mike, is that one of the ways multiculturalism affects British society is actually we lose our freedom because of it. Because that means we have to have more authoritarian policing, CCTV, facial recognition, even things like digital ID are pushed because of it. And people often talk about Singapore as being a perfect example of this. Like, Singapore is a highly multicultural state, but it's also incredibly authoritarian. Yeah. I don't want Britain to be like Singapore, because I actually don't want to live in an authoritarian, multicultural country. Right. I would actually like to live in a monocultural, free country whereby people are abiding by the same laws, they're playing by the same rules, and therefore we're allowed to keep our freedoms. What, you mean like England used to be? Yeah, like England used to be, effectively. I would like that. I would like that back, please. I do not want to have a papers police society.
Because we never gave permission for it to be given away.
No, exactly. There was no
these
permission.
Bloody idiots,
And I don't want, and I think that we on the right need, and just broadly in the common sense area, we need to be more forthright with this and being like, no, actually multiculturalism affects British freedom, because endlessly it just means more security, more CCTV, more police, more digital ID, more authoritarianism of the government. Yeah. And as someone who actually quite cares about English liberty and English liberalism, I don't want to see those things destroyed, because they are being destroyed before my eyes. And one thing people don't say anymore? It's a free country, isn't it, mate? No one says that anymore because people automatically don't think it is a free country.
Because it's only a free country if you're a scumbag immigrant who comes here to take advantage of it. I mean, here's another example. In a paper this morning in the Times, page 19, Afghans shipped £180 million worth of stolen iPhones abroad. The mastermind of a pickpocketing operation arranged for more than 62,000 stolen iPhones to be shipped abroad. Amir Kadi Kal, an Afghan asylum seeker, was at the top of a network of hundreds of pickpockets operating across the country, but mainly in London, who were paid up to £750 for the newest iPhone models. We don't need these bloody people coming into the country. If they're not raping women, if they're not killing and slicing the throats of women or men in Britain, they're stealing your phone. Yeah. And this guy, Amir Kadi Kal, led a network of pickpockets operating in London. Just piss off.
Scumbag.
Get lost.
Scumbag.
Go back to bloody Taliban land.
Yeah.
And, rot in hell.
Yeah,
as far as I'm concerned, I don't want you here. Nobody asked you to come here. And frankly, you're an absolute bloody disgrace. I'm trying really hard not to swear. It's quite difficult for me this morning. But it's disgusting. I've had enough. I think people have had enough.
People have had enough.
And the people who are Jewish, who are fine, upstanding members of our community, who live in North London, can't walk down the street without being bloody stabbed by some scumbag from Ethiopia or Somalia. What the hell have we got left as a country?
Exactly, right, exactly. And those kind of people should be deported immediately. There should be...
I would put this guy in front of a firing squad. Don't even bother with a trial. Just shoot him now. Right, and also, I would pull the trigger quite happily.
Also, interestingly, with the Afghan story you just mentioned, actually, if they did that, if they pulled that back at home, they'd be shot. Yeah. Taliban would shoot them in the head almost immediately.
Absolutely.
But in this country, here's 3 meals a day. Here's, it costs.
So let's rehabilitate him.
Yeah, taxpayers. I think it's about.
Give him a library card.
Almost 50 grand a year for prisoners.
Maybe you'd like to go to the cup final.
Yeah. So
unbelievable.
So these guys go to prison in a British prison and stay there. Taxpayers, once you go home, will be picking up the tab for this and picking up the tab for foreign nationals in prisons who just commit these kind of crimes instead of just deporting them. Or as you quite rightly said, in the case of especially this guy who committed the anti-Semitic attack, police should have just shot him.
Let's not bother with the trial. I mean, I know that people will say, you're doing away with jurisprudence, we don't want to become savages. Well, they're savages, and I say just kill them, do away with them, shoot them, frankly. Sorry. William, great to see you. I'm sorry that we're getting a bit carried away here. And yes, of course, I'm supposed to be a responsible broadcaster, and I am. But I'm really angry this morning because I'm sick to death of being invaded by these bloody scumbags who want to kill innocent, ordinary people just because they don't like the look of them, or they don't like their religion, or they don't like what they think. I've had enough. We'll see you... if we don't see you before, we'll see you on the night of May the 6th.
Yes, indeed.
He's been given a gold star invite by Pooch. Pooch, by the way, who's disappearing off to his holes later for a couple of days. He's taking a break. He's had enough of me. I mean, I can say this now openly. He's still here. You can still hear him in the background, but he's taking a powder later on. Charlotte's going to be in charge of our filming scenario today and tomorrow. Because he just needs to get away. I mean, who can blame him? My ex-wife said the same. She had to get away from me every now and again because I'm just too bloody annoying. It's as simple as that. But anyway, listen, great to see you.
I keep coming back. I'm the only
coming back. William Yarwood, this is why we love you, because you don't care. Thank you very much indeed. I don't know if we're going to do... We don't really need to do news, do we? It's too serious a day. Eh? Should we go straight to Dove? Yeah, we've got Dove Foreman here, who is, of course, Jewish, and I don't apologise for saying that, Dove. Very good morning to you. It's a terrible morning in many ways. You'll have heard my my ranting and raving this morning because I'm sick to death of this. I've had enough. You listen to Keir Starmer talking about having a Cobra meeting and making sure that we have money for the the safeguarding of the Jewish community. Well, how about you stop allowing these scumbags into the country? How about you stop encouraging anti-Semitism by being so completely and utterly, ridiculously, randomly associated with Islamism and frightened of Muslim activists. You know what I mean? I mean, tell me. I mean, you must be really, really upset this morning as well.
Well, look, the Jewish community are used to waking up every single morning over the last few months to the news of yet another arson attack, another synagogue firebombed, or Jewish community centre or charity attacked, Jewish school child pushed onto the train tracks on public transport, Jewish university student attacked on their campus, Jewish nurse or midwife in the NHS attacked. I mean, this is regular occurrences for us. But again, terror has now been brought to our doorsteps here in Golders Green, where I'm sat this morning in one of the most Jewish areas in the United Kingdom. And no one in the Jewish community is surprised. I mean, any politician who is claiming shock or feigning surprise yesterday at the attack is simply a politician who hasn't been listening to the concerns of the Jewish community, not just over the last few months as there's been this sustained attack on the Jewish community, but over the last few years. And there's a number of reasons why. But as you say, the Prime Minister keeps reaching for his thesaurus every single time there's an attack. First, he was devastated, then he was appalled, then he was abhorred. Now he's totally devastated. I mean, he's running out of words here, the Prime Minister. But I can tell you one thing, after the Cobra meeting last night, all he came out and said was, I'm going to visit the victims and our thoughts and prayers are with them. I'm sure that wasn't the response that they came up with at Cobra. There must have been a plan. The Jewish community is waiting to hear what they're actually going to do about this. Words are cheap, talk is cheap. We've had enough of these empty platitudes from the Prime Minister and his government, and also successive governments and politicians who have done nothing to protect our community. And all they've done is traded the patriotic British community for a community who hate this country, who hate every single value that we stand for, and who frankly want to murder Jews in this country.
Exactly right. And I mean, when you see front page headlines saying that UK anti-Semitism is out of control, I mean, how many more times does that need to be said? You know, it's very, very clear that the reason that anti-Semitism is out of control is because it's been encouraged by the Labour Party, by the Labour government, by Keir Starmer, by Sadiq Khan, by all of the people who could have stopped it in its tracks after October the 7th, and who actually didn't not only stop it in its tracks, but actively encouraged opposition to Israel, the only democracy in the bloody Middle East, for God's sake.
Absolutely. The anger yesterday was absolutely palpable.
Yeah.
Sir Mark Rowley, Sarah Sackman, when Shabana Mahmood went on the TV, people in Golders Green were angry, and it's not just the Jews of Golders Green, it's Jews across this country who fear that time now may be over for us in this country.
Yeah.
Again, we're a proud, patriotic community. You come to Golders Green, there's British flags on every single, the Union flag on every single lamppost. This is a patriotic community, a community who've lived in the UK for centuries. And we may now feel that we have to leave because of how bad this has got. Anti-Semitism is out of control, and we don't see the authorities, MPs, people in Parliament, the government wanting to actually do anything about this. Again, talk is cheap, but there are things that can be done now to help to combat this. And that includes, by the way, the silent majority. I mean, Mike, we know that there are people like you who are happy to call this out, but there are so many people who are appalled and abhorred about this, but who stay silent. And my message to them today would be to stop staying silent, because if you value the Jewish community in this country and you want us to stay here, it may well be too late if you don't carry on speaking up. And
but you know what's worse, Dov, is that what's worse though is you're right to point that out and to say that some people are just too silent and they don't speak up, because at the end of the day it won't stop with the Jewish community. You know, once the Jewish community leaves, and once the Jewish community has said we've had enough and we're actually going to move back to Israel, or we're going to go and live somewhere else, you know, the Islamists will come after somebody else. They'll come after the rest of us. They'll come after the other people they don't like. You know, the unbelievers. You know, the so-called infidels, and they'll suddenly be stabbing us. And they'll be walking down Oxford Street stabbing people instead of actually. Although to be fair, Oxford Street's full of Muslims, so probably they won't go down Oxford Street. But this is an existential threat to our country, as far as I'm concerned. And I don't know whether you know a guy called Ariel Whitman. I was doing a podcast with him yesterday. We were doing an interview, and funnily enough, Golders Green came up because I was, born and raised in Platts Lane. You know, I lived down the road from Golders Green for most of my life in the first 20 years of my life. And I hung out in Golders Green, I hung out in Hendon, I had a lot of Jewish friends, in Hampstead and all of those parts of North London. And so for me, it's an ethereal and a really, really emotional place for me. And I said to him, Jews in Golders Green, which is a very identifiable Jewish neighbourhood, are frightened to walk down the street. And literally, as I was driving home, He messaged me and said, I can't believe you were so prescient to say that because somebody's just been stabbed in Golders Green. It's astonishing.
It's totally insane, and you're completely right. First they come for the Saturday people, then they'll come for the Sunday people. The Jews are the first targets. We have visibly Jewish members of the Jewish community. We have areas and synagogues and shops which are clearly marked as Jewish shops. And so, look, this is an easy target in the first instance, but when they're done with the Jews, when the Jews perhaps do leave this country, trust me, they won't give up then. They are antithetical to everything that Britain stands for our Western democracy. And they won't stop with us. And people do need to wake up. They need to realise that, yes, this is the Jews now, but it's going to be you next. And so please speak up, stand up, because we don't see enough people doing that now.
No, quite. We showed some footage earlier of Sarah Sackman being heckled by the local community in Golders Green. Let's have a look now at Mark Rowley, who you mentioned, the Metropolitan Police Commissioner. He was up there as well.
You should resign! 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 You failed! Resign! Shame on you! Resign! Shame on you! 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 Shame on you!
I mean, one of the people that we saw tackling the assailant, this horrible scumbag from Somalia, was a Jewish sort of locally employed, I think, private security guard. I presume that the community will say, we need more of that. We need more of our own policing, if you like, because we can't rely on the police, the Metropolitan Police anymore, to look after us.
Well, look, firstly, the community is, of course, appreciative of the increased patrols and the officers who yesterday helped to tackle this man. But for 2.5 years, many Jews felt that the Metropolitan Police were appeasing people on our streets who were calling for an intifada to be globalized. And we saw the intifada be globalized yesterday, and we've seen that over the last few months, where there is a sustained attack against the Jewish people. And much of that is because people have taken a call to arms after there was a call to go out and carry out violence on our streets against Jewish people every single week in our capital city, and the police did nothing about that. So there are people who are very angry, and I think that's where those chants of shame and resign came from. And look, you're right, the man who initially tackled this terrorist yesterday was a volunteer in one of the security volunteer services that patrols the Jewish area, and again, doesn't just protect Jews, protects anyone in the area. If they were to see someone committing a robbery against a Jew or non-Jew, they would stop their car and go out and help them, but it happens to be run by Jews. He got a call on his radio to say there's a man wielding a knife. He got straight into his car, went straight to the area and tried to block him with his car and ram him over. And look, he put himself at danger, and certainly there are Jews this morning who feel that we need more of that, but there's only so much security that we can besiege ourselves with as a community and build higher fences and thicker walls around our synagogues and schools. Eventually we'll just decide that Jewish life in this country is no longer compatible if we have to live behind so much security.
Yeah, exactly right. And I mean, the problem is as well, is that, you know, in the last, say, I don't know, 2 or 3 months, there's been an escalation, hasn't there, of attacks. We had the ambulances set on fire. We know that there is a group, possibly very well organised group, a very well funded group of people committing acts of terrorism against the Jewish community, probably funded by Iran, probably funded by the IRGC. And again, we know it, we hear about it, we read about it, but what the hell are the government doing about it?
As you say, we don't know whether this is Iran linked, but clearly they keep taking responsibility, and there are a number of things that the Prime Minister can do. I mean, again, he keeps saying these words, but what's he going to do about it? And number one has to be to ban and prescribe the Muslim Brotherhood and the IRGC. These are two groups which are recruiting and encouraging terror against Jewish people in this country. Whether or not the attack yesterday was linked to it, we know for a fact that they're bringing over hate preachers, that they're radicalizing young people in mosques and schools and universities. So why aren't we doing anything about it? That's a clear step that can be taken. Number two is when people actually chant globalize the intifada, we should put them in prison for it. As we've said, it's illegal. Number three is that when there actually are anti-Semitic attacks, like, for example, when there was an attempted arson attack at one of the synagogues, the 17-year-old who pled guilty in court for doing it was let out on bail. Now that tells anti-Semites that they have a free pass to go and murder Jews, to go and try and burn down our synagogues, to try and go and burn down our charities, because you're saying you can go and do this, you'll get let home on bail just as long as you don't enter a synagogue ever again. I mean, these people don't want to enter a synagogue, they want to burn one down. And so we need to start ensuring that when the Prime Minister says that anti-Semites will face the full force of the law, they actually do face the full force of the law. And now Keir Starmer is a man who has a lot of experience with the CPS, having been a former head of the CPS, but he doesn't seem to want to reform that at all.
And that's the other thing that really absolutely, I think, grinds an awful lot of people's gears, is that, you know, this guy was described simultaneously as from being from Somalia, but also a British national. And, you know, I make no apologies for sounding crazed on this one, but who the hell gave this guy British nationality? And why is he a British national? And why is he here if all he wants to do is stab Jews?
Well, look, all I can do is guess because we don't know the exact details, but my guess is that this man came here as a refugee, was allocated free housing in probably one of the most expensive zones of London, perhaps areas 1 to 3. He was probably long-term unemployed, had a long trouble of history with the police, repeatedly was probably released after short spells in prison after saying he has mental health problems, despite all this troubling behaviour. I mean, there were reports, and allegedly he was arrested or was in some altercation earlier in the day or in the week before he went and committed this terrorist attack in Golders Green. So, look, we don't know the details. We know that he was born in Somalia and he was a British national, as they keep saying. We'll yet to hear what his name is or anything else, and we will wait to see. But I think many people here can imagine, as with many of these other terrorist attacks that have been happening against the Jewish people in recent weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so just enraged this morning. I don't quite know how to deal with it, and I don't know why I'm so enraged, but I just am, and you must feel the same. I mean, you're very measured and you're very calm about it. But what can we do? I mean, what do you want Keir Starmer to do?
Well, look, I am angry. I am also worried for my own future here in this country. When I go out on the streets, I'm a visible Jew. Yeah. I'm also someone who has a public profile and an online presence. And every single day you worry about what might be behind you when you walk onto the train. I mean, it's really nice that they're going to have armed police around Golders Green. But what happens when I get on the train and go past Golders Green to the Hampstead station or to Camden Town and get out there? Are they just going to murder me there? I mean, where does it become safe to be a Jew? Is it just in our now ghetto in Golders Green? I mean, is that what they want this to be, where Jews can only live in this one place with armed police and security? It simply doesn't make sense. And I know nothing else other than living here in London, in northwest London, in Golders Green. And do the government simply want me to pack up and leave? Because that's what's going to have to happen, and that's completely. It's
unacceptable.
It's in the United Kingdom, and it's unacceptable. Look, what do you want the Prime Minister, the government to do? I think we said it earlier. Prescribe the ARGC, prescribe the Muslim Brotherhood, ensure that the CPS actually charging people, ensure that the police are actually arresting people, and actually have a de-radicalisation programme, as we did after the 7/7 bombings. The 7/7 bombers did not believe in our democracy. They did not believe in our liberal values, as we keep calling them. They did not believe in anything that Britain stands for. And we actually investigated the places where they were being radicalised. They went into mosques, they went into community centres, they went into the schools and universities in these areas to try and root out that cause. After 7/7 bombings, I've seen nothing of the sort in the last 2.5 years from the government, from the police, from counter-terror police, from anyone in power. And we need to ensure that we have that. We need to start going into these areas, investigating what their preachers are telling them, and actually starting to do something about this. Because as we keep saying, this is not just going to end up being the Jewish community. Soon they'll start changing their messaging, and it will be against everything that Britain stands for.
Absolutely. Dove, listen, thank you so much for joining us this morning, and we wish you all the best, and let's see what we can do to rid this country of these horrible, ghastly individuals. Thank you so much, and stay safe. Dove Foreman there talking to us from Golders Green, where this terrible attack took place, where, you know, we've allowed this to happen. You know, the government has encouraged it. I'm sorry to say, the government has done nothing to stop Islamist extremism. The government has done everything to encourage people in this country to hate Jews and to hate Israel, partly because of their own obsession with anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism. It's shocking, absolutely shocking. Let's get a couple of super chats before we speak to Howard Cox about what's going on. Oil prices rocketing because of the fact that it's gone over $120 a barrel, apparently. Super chat from Brit Plays say, good morning, England, let's go, says Brit Plays. This one from LTL, a happy Thursday, everyone. I wish it was. Alessandra says, Mike, can you please start the show at 6 a.m? I'm tired of clicking through all the useless news channels until you come on at 7. Well, just change the international clock. And, you know, when you wake up and you think it's 6, make it 7. This one from Catherine, who says, so the Prime Minister is going to give security to the poor Jewish people after the fact. Didn't the PM give £120 million to mosques after Southport? Nothing to see here. Well, that's the thing. People made this point overnight to me that, you know, if this was an attack on on a Muslim community, he would be all over it. He would be there, standing there, you know, wringing his hands, weeping, talking about how we must protect the Jewish, the Muslim community. You know, you need a pre-warning alarm for Slimy Khan, says Danny. Yeah, we'll try and get one of those organised. Jane says tick-tock, tick-tock. Not quite sure what that means, but... you know, Starmer has made a complete rick of all of this. Red Rock says, I am 63, served my country in Ulster, and I would happily take to the streets and serve again to protect us, our rights, women, children, and the British way of life. We need to do that, people. We need to stop supporting anyone who thinks that multiculturalism is the way forward. Anyone who thinks that in importing people from the likes of Somalia, from Ethiopia, from Nigeria, from Pakistan, from all of these scumbag third world countries is a good idea. It's not a good idea. Look at this guy. Look at him. That's the front page of the Sun this morning. How many more, right? How many more people have to die or be stabbed or be shot or blown up by these fucking scumbags? I'm sorry. I'm not gonna stop swearing. I can't. Let's talk to Howard Cox, who's here to talk about fuel, which will probably slightly cool me down a little bit. Howard, very good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Mike. I mean, that last speaker of yours, what a lovely guy. What an incredibly measured person. And,
incredible.
I'm sorry.
But how awful is it that we have to live through this nightmare of these bloody awful scumbags who have come to this country with only one thought in their heads, which is to do harm to the people who have embraced them, you know?
Absolutely right. And Keir Starmer and Sadiq Khan should be doing their bloody job and protecting all communities, obviously, especially the Jewish, you know, because of what's happened yesterday. But I'm like you. I am so angry. My wife and I have been, you know, almost in tears looking at this. And, you know, I'm tempted to go up to Golders Green and show something. But me going up there won't do anything, won't change much. But it just shows how many people, normal, decent British people, support the Jewish community.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm from that part of London. You know, I was born and raised in Hampstead, just down the road from Golders Green. We've got many Jewish friends, as we all have. And it's not about religion. It's just about decency. And I don't, you know, I don't want people from bloody Somalia walking the streets of Britain. No, I didn't ask for that. I didn't say, that's a good idea. Let's get a load of scumbag, you know, savages to come from Africa and start slashing our women around and raping them and killing them. No, and we never said that we wanted that. You know, so stop it. Just get rid of them. You know, kick them all out, as far as I'm concerned.
I'm with you totally, Michael, on that. And I am honestly, I think everyone should rise up now against this stupid government we've got now. And I know May the 7th in the local elections, they're going to get a good kicking, but it still doesn't get it. We've still got these miserable, clueless idiots. You know, obviously I'm fighting on behalf of the cost of living situation. They are totally clueless in all departments. Yeah, and the cost of living problem that we've got in this country is partially due to the fact that we are subsidising an awful lot of these maniacs who live here on the sly. You know, none of them are working. You know, I bet you that we'll find out this guy doesn't have a job. He's probably on, you know, a universal credit. He's probably being paid to live in a house that we're paying for. You know, it's not acceptable anymore, and we've had enough. Absolutely right. And of course, everything about this at the moment, again, coming onto the cost of living crisis, you mentioned about the oil thing, it's gone up to $124. So, you know, it's gone up $30 in about 48, 72 hours. Yeah. And we, you know, and you watch petrol and diesel prices go rocketing up. We hear that she's actually cancelling the 5p increase in the autumn budget, moving it to next year's March 2027, which is good news. But it's not enough because 62 countries have already done something for the motorists. They did it 4 to 5 weeks ago when the crisis was really at its peak. And I just don't understand what's in this woman's mind. You know, she's got to go. I hope in the reshuffle she goes, but what will we get?
Well, that's the thing. You know, Starmer is so desperate now that he's going to do anything to keep his job, which is itself shameful because he should walk away as well. But the fact that he's now going to dump Rachel Reeves or Rachel Thieves or Richard III, as we like to call her, after all the things that she's done for him, which proves he's even more of a scumbag than we thought he was, you know?
That is so much of a likeness, that Richard III picture. I love it. I mean, it really is.
It is.
I mean, you're absolutely right. But I mean, you know, 42 countries have cut fuel duty 4 to 5 weeks ago.
Right.
What do? We keep ramming it home. Our inflation's gone up by 0.3%. It's going to go up by another 0.3% in April. We're going to suffer and suffer. And they keep talking about lauding this thing about we are doing a great job on economic growth. Well, it's bollocks. They're doing nothing. And my inbox is flooded with people struggling, and I'm really struggling with filling their cars up. And, you know, there are people not going to hospital appointments because they can't afford to get there. It's not just the economic heartbeat, it's the social heartbeat. And as you know, you don't have to be a petrol head just to use your car to go around your daily lives.
Yeah. No, I know. I mean, there is no kind of upper limit to it either, is there? I mean, I obviously I go to Sussex at the weekend and I try and fill up the car when I'm down there because I can get a litre of petrol for about 154, 155, something like that. As soon as I get back to London, it's back up at 159. And I'm assuming in the next, say, week or so, if the price of oil continues to rise, we might be seeing 160, 165. You know, for diesel, lots of people have already seen it going over £2, haven't they?
Absolutely right. The point is it's going to go rocketing up there. The interesting thing, it's gone up $30, but it went down. We hit about $118 about a week ago, and then it went down to about, sort of $90, $92, I think. But we didn't see that come down at the pumps, did we? But what's this? Is usual thing, up like a rocket, down like a feather, and never going back down as much as it went up by. This is totally and utterly the opportunistic profiteering. We saw the BP profits, didn't we? As much as I really want businesses to do well, and including retailers, that was taking the piss. You know, in a crisis like this, that's got to be monitored and stopped. And it's not, I'm a capitalist. I believe in the free market, but that, you know, doubling their profits because of the Iran crisis, that is sick.
It really is, because a lot of people say to me, you know, they bought the petrol that they're now selling long before it went up in price. So it's not really credible for them to say, oh, well, we have to put it up because, you know, just look at the news. No, you know, how about you actually do a decent thing and say, well, at the moment, the petrol that we've got, we bought at a price which was way below what it currently is running at. So for the moment, until we run out of that particular tranche of petrol, we're going to sell it for whatever it is, you know, 133.
Well, exactly.
That's what they should do.
You're absolutely right, but it's immoral, that sort of thing, what's happened. 45% of my supporters have written into me telling me that they have actually seen pump prices go up sometimes 2 or 3 times in the same day on the same stock of fuel they'd already bought 3 or 4 days earlier.
Right.
And it is very sick. So we are, you know, I will be delivering a petition. We've already got 132,000 who've completed and signed up to calling on Rachel Thieves to do her thing. In other words, cut duty now, get rid of that horrible VAT, that double taxation that's on the duty itself. That's even more immoral to me. That's 10 to 12p we could knock off per litre just by doing that. And above all, I understand, yes, she's moved the fuel duty rise, the Rishi Sunak 5p cut of 2022. She's moved that now to March 2027. Oh, that's very good of her, isn't it? Just moved. You know,
it could be dead by then.
Yeah,
you know, I could be stabbed by a Somali in between now and then, for heaven's sake, you know.
Yeah, I shouldn't be laughing at that. That's a serious point. But
I know.
Absolutely right. But, you know, but it'll be nice if your viewers, and, you know, you've got a great number of viewers, and congratulations on what you're doing your show. If they could actually, you know, go to fairfueluk.com and sign our petition. It's free. It takes 45 seconds for you to do it. Just do it. Then I can deliver that to number 10. And some senior politicians, good, decent senior politicians, will be coming with me, handing that petition in the next couple of weeks.
Okay, great. I'll tell you what, I'll go looking for it, but I'm sure you've already done it. But if you tweet something out, we'll retweet it and get people to sign up, because that's what we do. We build communities here at the Mike Graham Show. But listen, Howard, good to see you, man. Take care of yourself, and try and avoid getting any penalty points over the course of the next several days. I mean, I'm now at the point where if you drive a car, which I now do every day in London, it's become such a hazard that I'm expecting to get a penalty charge every single week, just for no good reason.
It's impossible to drive below bloody 20 mile an hour. It's just absolutely stupid. You can't do it because you're looking at your speedo all of the time. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, I was driving back from work yesterday, and there was an accident apparently somewhere around from the Oval cricket ground, and literally nobody could move. It was complete gridlock, and I ended up going around the back of Elephant Castle, and then there was an ambulance suddenly behind me. with its lights on, and I'm sitting in traffic, and I'm like, well, I'm not moving into the bus lane, because if I move into the bus lane to let you go, I'm going to get a fine. So in the end, the guy was sitting behind me, like honking his horn. I was like, well, you bloody go in the bus lane. And you end up, probably causing somebody's death as a result of these ridiculous traffic rules,
I know it's chaos on our roads, particularly in London. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, the only good thing about London, at the moment in time, is that if you've got an electric vehicle, or if you've got a hybrid vehicle, you can't get above 8 mile an hour anyway. So
I know. You might as well be driving a hairdryer, mightn't you? I mean, it's as simple as that. Anyway, listen, Howard, look, good to see you, man. Take it easy. Thank you very much indeed. Go and sign Fair Fuel's petition. He's going to be delivering it to Downing Street soon, and hopefully we'll see some respite on the tax front on motorists, and we shall see. Coming up, Jamie Jenkins is going to join us, our favourite statistician. He's from the Office of National Statistics. We've had a very serious start to the show, and I think I've calmed down a bit now, so I think I might be able to not swear for the next 2 hours. But we've got Edward Hughes coming up with the news. Also, we've got a poll going, because on the front page of the Daily Mail, believe it or not, we've got Angela Rayner, who is apparently likely to make a comeback into the cabinet, right? But the exclusive story on the front page of the Mail says Angela Rayner, a boozy night in the Commons barroom door that had to be repaired. Apparently she was so drunk that she walked into the door as she was leaving one of the bars in the House of Commons, and it had to be repaired. Because she's a bit of a unit, isn't she, old Angela? I mean, you wouldn't want to mess with her. So here's the poll of the day. What is Angela Rayner's favourite cocktail? Is it pissed up pedalo, sex on the beach, the ginger growl, or indeed the vacuous vapour? Amazingly, the ginger growl is coming up as the leader at the moment. 57% of you think that's a good name for it. I think sex on the beach, whether it's maybe sex on the Brighton beach, where she's got the place down there with her boyfriend in Hove. It's got pebbles though, so you'd have a bit of a rough time, as if you wouldn't have a rough time with her anyway. One of those cheering your arm off moments, wouldn't it? Anyway, I don't want to get into that. That would be wrong. We are here. It's 11 minutes past 8. Let's get some news with Edward Hughes.
Good morning. I'm Edward Hughes. It's Thursday, the 30th of April. Police are treating the stabbing of 2 Jewish men in Golders Green, North London, as a terrorist incident. The victims, aged 76 and 34, were attacked in broad daylight and remain in hospital in stable condition. A 45-year-old man was arrested at the scene. King Charles and Queen Camilla are continuing their state visit to the United States, including events in New York and engagements with President Trump. The visit marks a significant moment in UK-US relations. On the domestic front, many households are feeling the impact of April bill changes. Council tax, water bills, and other costs have risen for most, though energy prices have seen a welcome drop of around £117 a year for the average household under the new Ofgem price cap. In international news, the BBC has reported from a joint US-UK military base in Iraq that continues to face regular attacks amid the ongoing regional tensions and fragile ceasefire. That's the main picture from the UK today. Please remember to like and subscribe. Laters, Tigers.
Edward Hughes there with the news. I thought we were going to change his hairstyle for the day. I think we need to get him with no hair at all. I think Mohican was funny yesterday, but I'm not sure it works 2 days in a row. I don't know. It's up to you. Maybe we should have one of those things that we used to do. Is if we get to 5,000 likes, we will shave Edward Hughes's head. How about that? Yeah. Right. It's the moment it's running at 2,500. So if we get to 5,000, we'll shave his head. Nothing else. I'm not saying we'll shave anything else. That's it. Let's talk to Jamie Jenkins, who is our favourite man in Welsh Wales, and of course our favourite statistician as well. Jamie, very good morning to you, sir.
Morning, Mike. I'll have a glass of the ginger growl, please, if you've got any on offer.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's in it though. I'm sort of frightened to ask, to be honest. But Pooch will give us a clue at some point, I'm sure, as to what the ingredients are for the ginger growl. But let's talk about Wales, because obviously we're only a week away now from the local elections. There's an awful lot of interest in what happens in Wales, not least because it could be that for the first time ever, Labour become the third party and lose control of it altogether. Plaid looking as if they're in the driving seat. I mentioned to you the other day that it looked like a poll suggested that reform might be kind of coming up on the rails, but you're not sure that's really something that's going on, right?
Yeah, so for months, Mike, Reform and Plaid Cymru have been kind of neck and neck in the polls. Some polls put Reform in the lead, some
Yeah.
polls put Plaid Cymru in the lead. The poll that came out, I think, this week, putting Reform in the lead. They did have Reform quite ahead in the Caerphilly by-election that we had back end of last year. And so what happened when we had the Caerphilly by-election is Plaid Cymru won. I think Reform's biggest problem, Mike, is that many of the people who support Reform are people who are a bit disillusioned with the mainstream politics, and they don't tend to get out and vote. And what we've got in Wales, Mike, which people probably won't be surprised if they live here, is that even though it's a national Welsh Parliament election, we've never had more than half the population bother voting. People just can't be arsed, Mike, just voting for these things. And I think when I'm driving around, and you normally see placards around the place where I live in the Welsh valleys, you used to see obviously loads and loads of Welsh Labour placard. I don't think anybody will admit that they're still supporting the Labour Party and Keir Starmer. So I've seen none, literally none. But I'm not seeing much for other parties. I've seen a few Plaid Cymru ones, very few other ones, Mike. And so my prediction for next week, Plaid Cymru probably will be the largest party. Reform are doing well. I think Reform's biggest challenge, obviously, is this just most of the candidates at the front end for Reform are former Tories. So if you want to vote for the Tory party in Reform, you may as well vote for the Tory party itself. So that's where we're at. But we're having loads of these leaders debates. So when you have the general election, Mike, and you see ITV, BBC, Channel 4, we'll have Starmer, Kemi Badenoch. We get our own version of that in Wales. They seem to be on every other bloody day here. And it's getting a bit of a bore fest, I think, now, Mike. So I think people will be glad when these elections are over.
Yeah, but I guess the question a lot of people will have, and I'm being asked that quite a bit as well, is that what difference will it make when you wait? I mean, I know it takes. I mean, I've never quite understood why it takes so much time to count the council election votes, because they're so much smaller than the general election, but they seem to take like 3 bloody days to get it all done. So we probably won't really have a final version of events, I suppose, until Monday after the weekend. But will anything change in Wales? I mean, do you feel as though if Plaid Cymru suddenly becomes the ruling party, will it make any difference?
Well, the thing is, Labour have never really had a majority in Wales, Mike, because of the system we've got here. They've always had to have some support from either the Lib Dems or Plaid, and there's been agreements between Labour and Plaid. Will it change? It's a big question. I don't think it's going to change much, because ultimately Welsh politics and the calibre of the politicians who are standing is absolutely dire, Mike. Most of these people, I always challenge to people when I talk about this, how many people who are standing would earn a job earning, say, a minimum of 80 grand a year in the private sector? Very, very few of them. I think a lot of it is a bit of a jolly to get a nice taxpayer-funded job, and they haven't got a clue. And if they were talented, they'd be working in the private sector. So, I think ultimately, you've seen the state of the UK overall with the Labour Party. We needed the Labour Party to come in, I suppose, with Starmer. And remember, he got fewer votes than Corbyn. In part, Starmer's destroying the Labour Party. People have needed to wake up. We obviously had the poor Boris Johnson, Rishi Sunak era. Starmer's come in and shown how terrible the Labour Party is. So I think for Wales, people won't realise how bad the Plaid Cymru are until they're given some chance to show how bad they actually are. It's a similar story, Mike, with the Green Party. They might end up propping up Plaid Cymru. We had Zach Polanski this week saying he hopes Plaid Cymru gets in. He's hoping to do a deal with him if he needs a few extra support in terms of getting budgets and things through. So will things change, Mike? No, I think ultimately maybe they don't do the count in Wales the same night. Actually, they do all the votes and then they lock them all up and everybody goes to bed. That's literally what it's like in Wales. They don't even bother starting to count them overnight, which is absolutely bonkers as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe what will happen in the next sort of 5 years or so is that you'll find yourself having a massive increase in the population. I mean, we're seeing a story today that there's massive kind of riots almost going on in Spain because the Spanish government said that we're going to give 500,000 visas away to anybody coming here from Africa or points, south, east, west or north, Most of those people probably are going to end up staying in Spain, but an awful lot of them might also make it to France and might also make it here. There was a story from the ONS this week that said something like 7.5 million migrants are going to come here in the next 10 years. It's going to be offset to some extent by 5.5 million people leaving the country. But in the end, we're going to end up with, even if their numbers are right, another 2.5 million people living here who have come from overseas.
Yeah, and I've just published this morning, Mike, on my Substack, so people can get over. Just Google Stats Jamie, and then I think on the screen they can see my web address there about this one, Mike. And so what the ONS does every couple of years is they do a set of population projections, and they're an important set of figures because I used to work at the ONS with the teams who produce these figures, and they're important because basically when the government or local authorities or just anything, the NHS, even businesses themselves, they need to plan for the future. So we need to kind of get an estimate as to how many people we think we're going to be there nationally and also locally as well. And so what we've got, Mike, here in these latest set of figures, they are down on what they thought 2 years ago, because when we had the big massive Boris wave of immigration, I think the ONS was assuming that we were going to literally every single year into the future have a net migration figure of 340,000, which is massive. They've revised that down based on the latest policies and the latest trends down to around 230,000 people. But no, that's still a lot of people, Mike, every single year net migration to the country. Remember under the Tories in the 2010s, there was tens of thousands. That seems to have gone away. So what the figures are showing, another 1.7 million people will add to the population by 2034, entirely driven by migration. We lose about 500,000 people because we got more deaths than we have births. And we need a grown-up debate on this, Mike, because we talk about AI is going to replace some jobs. Well, we don't need the migration then for the word part of that. We've got massive house problems in terms of the affordability for people, and that impacts on people having children, Mike. So the reason there's fewer children is people aren't living together as early as they used to. And then back in 1997, when you try to buy a house, your average earnings was about 3.6 times. So the house price was 3.6 times your average earnings. That's now over 7. It's about 7.6. It's come down in the last couple of years. But we can't continue to run a country with all this mass migration. And the shocking stories we hear, we don't know who half these people are. You've got the legal migration. You've got illegal migration. But, you know, a lot of people who seem to come to this country don't kind of bed in with a way of life that we have in this country.
Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, talking of which, there's an amazing stat in the papers today, which I think you will be, like me, not surprised at all to hear, which is a piece in the Times. It's a report being put out by, I think it's Trading Standards, who have basically said that half of convenience stores and a quarter of fast food takeaways up and down the country, and includes Wales as well as England, are apparently run by organised crime. Well, you know, blow me over with a feather, you know. I mean, this is not exactly news to me. Coastal towns from Dorset to Hampshire to Sussex. Liverpool apparently is really bad, surprisingly enough. Hull, Grimsby. The Chartered Trading Standards Institute say that, you know, there's dodgy shops up and down the country. Well, really? Well, you know, you don't need to do a survey to do that. I mean, even in my little tiny town in Sussex, there's 3 now Turkish barber shops. There's a vape shop, and there's about 3 empty kind of storefronts that nobody can actually afford to run because the government and the council are charging so much money for business rates that nobody can afford to run a business there.
No, in the village just over the road from where I live, Mike, I think it's a port in Rhondda and Tafia. I think there was some story that it is 13 barber shops it's only a small one.
And there's never anyone in them, right? I mean, you don't need to go to a barber's, do you? You haven't got any hair.
I need to go to one, Mike. I run my own hairdressing salon. I do my own hair, Mike.
But, I mean, you know, there's no market there for you, mate, you know.
No, it's certainly not, Mike. But no, it's absolutely bonkers. And the BBC, fair play to them, they've done a few investigations on this because they've gone, what you find with these dodgy outlets is you go in there and, I don't know, say a packet of cigarettes costs about £14-15, but under the counter, they'll have cigarettes that you can buy for £7, which are kind of being run by all these organised crime. No duty being paid, so the government doesn't get a single penny from this. And I've heard of stories, Mike, as well, where people keep saying about smashing these gangs and how can they afford to give these gangs money to come over on the boats? Well, some of these people who do come over on the boats, Mike, they don't give a penny to the smugglers because they smuggle them in. And then their payment is going to work in these
exactly, yeah. And they're either working in a brothel or a nail bar or a barber's shop or delivering drugs, whatever it is they're doing. And I mean, I don't know why people find this so extraordinary. I mean, I've been saying this for years. You know, I've been saying nobody's giving a lot of the smugglers $4,500 to come here. You know, they're just enslaving themselves so that when they get here, they then owe them $4,500, which they then have to work off, which probably takes for the rest of their lives, right?
Yeah, and what did I think we talked about this months ago? And what was the government solution to all this, Mike? A digital ID. You know, if people are literally smuggling themselves into the country, selling dodgy tobacco, probably drugs as well, do they really care about having a digital ID? Of course they don't. And
no,
and Darren,
but it's like saying, you know, all these people that drive around in cars without insurance. You know, we're going to crack down on everyone who's got insurance by charging them more money. And like the people who don't buy insurance are already not buying it, so they're never going to be affected by it, are they?
Oh no, totally, Mike. And that's it. So digital ID still hasn't gone away. I think Darren Jones was down in Australia trying to. Why the hell he's charging a taxpayer for a government-funded trip to Australia to talk about some system they've got down there?
Yeah.
He should do some PR on that. So that hasn't gone away. I was down with I think you had Alan Miller on quite regularly, Mike, and I was down the Welsh Parliament last week talking about this. There's a little bit of a protest down there across in Wales, Belfast, London, and up in Edinburgh, and that one hasn't got away, Mike. And so the question you posed me about will Wales get any better under Plaid Cymru? The problem we got is Starmer's literally on a life support machine. Well, the question back, I suppose, is would England and the rest of the UK get any better if bloody Angela Rayner takes over from Starmer, Mike? You know, that's probably even worse. What do you think?
Yeah, I would have thought so. Here's a question for you, and you may not know the answer to this, and it's not a massive test, but this trading standards report has named the counterfeit capital of Europe. Where do you think it is?
Oh, the counterfeit Liverpool?
It's Manchester, a place called Cheetham Hill. Cheetham Hill, Manchester, apparently is the counterfeit capital of Europe. That's 206 criminal establishments closed, £1.56 billion worth of counterfeit goods seized in the last year alone.
Yeah, Mike, and on that, yeah, and all that stuff, Mike. It doesn't. All this kind of we call it kind of the dark economy.
Yeah.
It doesn't generate any money for us in terms of tax. So the more migration and the more that we have all of this illegal counterfeit stuff going on, it's literally money that's pissing out the country, probably going abroad to criminal gangs as well. And which government, Mike, which party are talking serious on sorting this out? That's the biggest problem we've got here. You know, we've got 1.7 million more in a decade coming over. That's down. And it's important to remind people where we are as well, Mike. So remember we talked about this? So in between 2021 and 2024, under that Boris wave that keeps getting talked about because of that right to remain, and we've got that big issue coming up soon, 2.3 million net migration to the country. And then between 1981 and 2007, when things were a bit normal in this country, we had 2.2 million. So we had, more people came in the last 3 years between 21 and 24 than in the whole period between 1981 and 2007. We need a grown-up debate. The country, I think, needs to get to a point, Mike, where it's not got any net migration. You need a reset, zero net migration until all the services, until the public has got the facilities, the GPs, the doctors, to be able to have a healthy, sustainable living standards in this country. Some government needs to wake up, smell the coffee, and get that sorted, Mike.
Yeah, absolutely right. Jamie, great to talk to you as ever. Thank you very much indeed. Jamie's going to be on Plank of the Week this week as well, so look forward to that on Friday night, going out at 7 o'clock. Of course, we'll be recording that a little bit later on this week. People are asking me if I combed my hair this morning. Yeah, I did actually. Well, actually, no, I didn't. I don't ever comb my hair. But I didn't put the gel in it that I normally put in, so it does look a bit mad. Trouble is though, my hair's growing at a rate of knots. I don't understand why it's growing. It's really because the more successful I get, the more my hair grows. I think that's partly what it is. I used to say it was stress related. The more stress I had, the more my hair grew. Because of course we had Rachel's partner come down and cut it for me just a few weeks ago. Was it? When was that? Was it like
3 weeks ago?
That's only three. No, it was more than 3 weeks ago, I think. Anyway, he's not allowed back because he didn't clear it up afterwards, so he's not going to be allowed back to do it again. So I'm going to have to find somebody else to cut it, I'm afraid. But anyway, we're going to now talk to our next guest, Bella Hasty from Safe Screens on under 16s and their social media ban, which is apparently being proposed by Keir Starmer and the government. lots of people have got different views on this, so I'll be interested to see what Bella has to say about it. Bella, good morning to you. Thank you for joining us.
Morning, Mike.
So,
nice
I mean, what's your take on this under 16 ban? Do you think it's something that's achievable? That it's a good idea? Can it work? Or are you? I mean, I'm sort of dubious about it, to say the least, shall we say?
Yeah, we're actually really delighted with where we've got to so far, but it's not the whole way. When you work like we do with huge numbers of health professionals, police, and teachers, you see the harms our children are coming to. They are just astronomical. You are talking about, we all know the mental health issues. We all know the rise in eating disorders, the rise in anxiety, and then the knock-on impacts, but also the huge rise in things like non-fatal strangulation. And 27% of primary school children have seen pornography. And they haven't gone and found that. That has turned up on their feeds. We are rewiring our children, and we're rewiring them in a way that we cannot bring them back without enormous amounts of work. So we feel the harms are absolutely enormous. Then, the question you ask is, what can we do about it?
Right.
Well, just education is not enough. These things are addictive. We have seen in America the cases against Meta that have shown that they are addictive. We know from research, we know from evidence. You have to be quite careful of the word addiction because it has to technically be defined in psychiatry books. But actually, problematic smartphone usage and social media usage, according to the WHO work, and this was 2-3 years ago, so it's probably going to be worse now. 23% of 13-year-old girls in England have problematic social media usage. And when you take that, and we know that, those children who have the problematic usage a year or so after you measure it, so you look longitudinally, they have significantly higher chances of eating disorders. They have significantly higher chances of substance abuse, all these awful things. And just also the things like musculoskeletal issue, the physical issues, and the links to obesity and the likes. This is a massive public health emergency, and the Academy of Medical Royal College has said that. So the question is, what do we think about where we've got to? And what we can do about it?
The question, Bella, that I would have for you is I don't think anybody would disagree with any of the things you've just said, because clearly it's there for everyone to see. The question for me is it likely that trying to ban something will be a success, and how would you go about banning it, and how would you measure that?
Well, I think first of all you have to be quite careful on the word ban. As we all know, ban is a very loose word, and it means lots of different things to different people. In Australia, they have simply labelled individual platforms. That is quite difficult because that basically means that people, it can shift and change. What went through Parliament on Monday, or going through, is about actually looking at the real detail of individual features and functions. So what they've said they'll do is they will look at the individual features and functions, which gives you an ability to look across and keep this agile and moving, because actually it's those features and functions that cause the problem. So things like live streaming, things like the addictive algorithms, things like the moving all the way, doom scrolling, harmful content, all of those areas there. And this would allow you to have a dynamic regulatory process which can add new features as they come, because these guys are faster and quicker than we do. And what we're really talking about is we're not banning children. We are saying, if you as a platform cannot deliver a product that is safe for our children to use, you cannot have access to our children. And that's true for any product on the market.
Sure.
Any product on the market.
This is a much more difficult. But isn't this a much more difficult product to police, if you like? Because at the end of the day, for example, I mean, just talking as we are, what if somebody said, well, you can't watch the Mike Graham show on YouTube because that might be deleterious to your health if you're under 16? How would you stop people seeing it?
What you're actually talking about is actually stop if they remove the features that become addictive. So short-term doom scrolling, all of those, then people can see it. People can get children to get in there and have access to it. And we are talking about under 16s. We're talking about the most important developmental stage for our children. We're talking about the time of things that are going to change. And then we're really looking at, it is looking at those individual features. If YouTube sort out their features and they take off doom scrolling, they take off likes, they take off, the harmful algorithms that drift children into seeing things. We know, for example, that a child with tendencies towards eating disorders, if they get onto TikTok, for example, there's been big research on this, they just sort of look slightly longer over a dieting ad. Suddenly, they are getting within 2 or 3 days, 4,000% more toxic eating videos. So it's about managing the features rather than.
But let me ask you again, though. If, for example, it was decided, and I don't know who decides it, that this program was harmful to kids, how would you stop
It's not
them
the programs. It's not the programs. It is about the content. It's about the platform. So if YouTube is deemed to have features on it that are harmful for children, they cannot access YouTube. But when YouTube sort out those features, I'm not saying YouTube.
But how does that physically work,
features.
though? But how does that physically work? If my child has got a phone like this, and you're saying to me they won't be able to access YouTube, how manifestly, how does that work?
Okay, so sorry, this is all about age verification. In the same way that we have the law says about age verification for pornography, we have to put the onus on the tech firms to deliver serious age verification for under 16s. And they know, I mean, they're managing to send appropriate advertising to these children. They know, they have the data, they have the information. And there are lots of ways of doing this that don't require digital ID. I heard your previous guest talking about that. That is not needed to do proper age verification. Right. There's so much in there that you can do that can be at platform data, which doesn't require giving long-term data. There's lots of ways of doing this. And we know these tech firms are stunningly capable and stunningly competent. And if they have enough of a stick to make them do this, they will do that. And they won't do it without the stick.
Right, because there's money in it, I guess. And I mean, you're right. I mean, people talk about digital ID a lot because they worry that in order to stop young people from accessing certain things, you have to verify that you're old enough to do something, which a lot of people don't want to do. You know, a lot of people, certainly that listen to this show and watch this show, are very uneasy about that, and they don't want to give the government any information that they don't wish to give them.
I absolutely, I totally get that. And along with the censorship argument as well, which we know was in place long before the Online Safety Act, because we all kind of came under that at different moments. But what's really, really important is that actually there is absolutely no reason for digital ID or any of these things to keep our children safe. And we need to separate those two arguments, because we have to keep our children safe. This is absolutely horrific what is going on. But there are lots of ways that don't include the government. So you can confirm their age without collecting or storing personal data. You can have verified date of birth, and it doesn't need to stay there. And it does not need to be done by the government. You don't need to hand over passport or driving license details. And also we're talking about, think about how much data we're already giving over without even thinking about it. So there's a whole argument about actually you're probably giving over huge amounts of this data as well. This is not an excuse. This should not be an excuse for the government to introduce digital IDs. And as we're seeing, this is happening globally and other countries are doing it. They will respond to this because this is money. If the punishment is enough, if the business case is enough for them to do this, they will find a way of doing it. And that's the bottom line. This is all about money making. Every single thing we have seen from whistleblowers, every single thing we have seen in court, everything we've seen from their data, they are very happy to put money ahead of child safety unless they have to.
Yeah, I'm sure that's right. Absolutely. Fascinating. Really, really good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Bella Hasty there talking to us from Safe Screens on social media banned for under 16s. A lot of people worried about whether or not we will all be forced to somehow have to identify ourselves to some kind of either government organisation or perhaps just a social media organisation in order to look at things. According to Bella, that's not necessary. It doesn't have to happen, which is music to my ears, because certainly I think a lot of people would say, yeah, of course, you want to safeguard your kids. You want to make sure that they don't see things that they shouldn't be seeing. My kids have seen some things that when they were a lot younger, which they've now told me about, which was horrific. Stuff like when ISIS was going around burning people in cages and cutting people's heads off and stuff like that. All of that was on YouTube, and all of that was easy to watch if you wanted to find it. And horrific stuff, real life murders, real life snuff movies, all sorts of terrible things that kids should not be associated with. And I, for one, would be very happy to stop them from seeing it, but not at the cost of all of us having to give up our personal freedoms in order to allow our kids to be safeguarded. It's a very difficult one. But certainly there's no doubt that the whole social media kind of revolution has been in parts brilliant, but also in parts terrifying. And the number of times that I go on, say, Facebook and suddenly have a whole host of adverts thrown at me for things that I've been talking about, it's quite weird. It has to be said, but we'll talk about that some more, I'm sure. Coming up, we've got to speak to Laya Cunningham is here. She's coming into the studio, actually, from Reform. She's going to be running for mayor in London, of course, but she'll have plenty to say about the upcoming elections, I'm sure. Johnny Gould is going to be talking to us as well about that terrible story on the front pages this morning about anti-Semitism out of control in this country after a Somalian man who has a British nationality, believe it or not, went on the rampage in Golders Green, a Jewish part of North London, stabbing people at random before he was stopped by the police and by a terribly brave individual who was a local security guard for the Jewish community. Also, Donald McLeod coming up very shortly. He's, of course, going to be masterminding the big live show that we're doing on Wednesday of next week. Just less than a week away now. Very exciting. And Alan Mendoza as well, who is, of course, an expert in all manner of terrorism-related stories. We'll be talking to him as well. Let's get a couple of super chats, though, before we do anything else, shall we? How about this one from Beeston? It says, we need to stop the boats and start deporting. Yeah, can we not send the boats the other way? Or send them to Spain or somewhere? Peterborough says, how long do you reckon before Starmer mentions the far right? Well, probably about 10 minutes. Beeston, again, says the UK is becoming de-civilised because of migration. It is, and I'm sick of it. We don't want it to be that way. TH says Hitler used hate against the Jews to get power, and Islamists are doing the same. It's all about power. I really don't like what's happening in this country. I really don't. Uncle Joe says, first they go after the Jews. I didn't speak up or do something because I wasn't a Jew. Then they come for me, and there's no one left to protect me. That's a famous saying, of course, from the Second World War. One super chat from TMK. Thank you very much indeed. One from Hev Chip. How are the victims? I think happily, I mean, not happily, but I think luckily nobody's life is in danger. But that's not the point. The point of terrorism is to terrify people. And if you've got somebody walking around your neighbourhood stabbing people, that's terrifying. How does Starmer look his Jewish wife and kids in the face after these incidents keep happening? Jewish communities are often the epitome of how to assimilate the right way when they immigrate into other countries, says Judas Goat. Yeah, absolutely right. I don't know how Starmer wakes up in the morning. I don't know how he sleeps at night. But what I can tell you is that he probably doesn't have to look his wife in the face because she's not there. He has to call her on the phone and do a FaceTime scenario. I think probably the best thing to do. David says, so are white girls and women living in fear? I don't know is the straight answer. I think maybe some of them are. Certainly women that I know tell me that they're terrified of going out at night. And they don't like going out sometimes during the day because they get harassed in the street nowadays by people who have come here from other countries where women are not respected. So I'm not a woman, I can't speak for that, but what I can say is that there are plenty of women who tell me that they don't enjoy it. And why would they? We've got a massive, I don't know with Charlotte whether we can do this, but before we speak to Donald McLeod, can you play the one of the videos of the Shepherd's Bush Empire? Can we do that? Yeah. Just to sort of whet our appetites for what we're... Pooch is still here, by the way. He's desperately... He's got one foot out the door, but he's still here.
I'll take some migrants when I go.
Can you take some back? Yeah, take that Somalian bloke and dump him in Calais or something. Just before we speak to Donald McLeod of the Clan McLeod, who is, of course, the impresario putting on the fabulous Mike Graham and Friends show alongside his brother, Lewis, who's going to be one of the stars of the night, alongside Carol Decker from Tapau, alongside Right Said Fred, alongside Russell Quirk, alongside Stephen Barrett, alongside Marilyn Hawes, alongside Chris Walkie and the guys from Plonk of the Week who are going to be coming along. Anna McGovern's going to be there doing some opening of some wine bottles, because that's what we like to see her doing. Have we got the? Have we got it? Have a look at this. Welcome to the Shepherd's Bush Empire, the home of free speech, certainly for one night only, May the 6th, right here on the stage in front of me. You'll be here behind me. There'll be loads and hundreds of you will be here watching a fantastic show, Mike Graham and Friends. We've got Lewis MacLeod, one of the world's greatest impressionists. He'll do his Donald Trump. I'm sure he's got a Starmer now. He's got to do a Starmer, otherwise we're not letting him in. He's also very good at Nigel Farage, of course. He'll do that. We've got Intel Lady as well. She's going to do Emily Maitlis, you know, with the fake tan, brilliant. And also the fantastic Bridget Phillipson. She'll also do Angela Rayner and all of those great Labour women. You'll see all of that. We're going to have Right Said Fred going to be here. I'm too sexy for my shirt, right? Too sexy. Too sexy. And then we're going to have Carol Decker from Tapau. She's promised that she might not sing, so we don't know if she's going to do that, but it's China in your hand, apparently. He keeps changing. That's why I get confused. She keeps me bollocking. And then Pooch, of course, is here producing it. Absolutely brilliant. My kids are going to be here, hopefully helping out. We'll have merchandise for you. You can have shirts, you can have hats, you can have bumper stickers, all sorts of stuff going on. Donald MacLeod will be here, of course, as well, Lewis's brother. He's masterminding the whole thing. Fantastic guests are going to be joining as well. Will Geddes is going to be here, our favourite international man of mystery. Marilyn Hawes, our favourite piss artist, she's going to be here. Doing Plonk of the Week. Chris Walkie's going to bring a few bottles of fizz with us, but we're not allowed to drink before the show, because otherwise that would be a no-no. And then, of course, we've got Anna McGovern. Emma Wolf is going to be here, we think. We've got Stephen Barrett, the world's greatest barrister, right? We're going to get the benefit of him. We're going to be sitting there on the stage, sofas, desks. We're going to have clocks. We must have some clocks, actually. A couple of herons as well. Yeah, I think we'll have a heron or two. And obviously, it'd be nice if we had a couple of dogs to bring on, but we haven't. But we may not be allowed to do that. But it's May the 6th. If you haven't got a ticket yet, Ticketmaster is where you get it. Ticketmaster.co.uk. Look for the Shepherd's Bush Empire. It's the O2, May the 6th. Our doors open around about 7 o'clock. It's going to be a fantastic night. I can't wait for it personally. It's going to be tremendous. Absolutely amazing. I can't wait. See you there. And now, without any further ado, as they say, the man behind the whole thing, Donald MacLeod of the Clan MacLeod, MBE, legend of Scotland, Britain, the world.
Legend.
Legend. Listen, I can't wait. I'm so excited. I can't believe we finally got here. You know, it was meant to be something that happened at the back end of last year. We couldn't do it then. We're now doing it. I'm really looking forward to it. You're going to be kind of the master of ceremonies, I understand.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do?
Well, I'll be introducing you. I'll be coming on, making a few cracks, jokes, and slagging everybody in the audience, and slagging yourself, of course.
Excellent.
Pulling you up about the crane and the heron, and pointing out the difference. I'm sure we'll do that. I'm sure we'll do a plonk of the week, or second to none.
We will.
Then we'll be doing another one the next day, of course, on the show. So you better get ready. You better get the Gaviscon sort of swallowed and get your stomach lined.
Listen,
because you're coming out with me on the Wednesday. You're out on the Tuesday, the Wednesday, and Thursday. So less of your shite bragging. You know, we're not having it, right? I'm not having it.
I'm under strict orders from Pooch, right? I'm not allowed
I don't care. Pooch can just you can look after yourself. You're an adult or you're a little boy. Are you a little boy? If you're a little boy, then Push will hold your hand and take you everywhere. But you're not. You're a man with a great amount to say. A lot of it's shite, but some of it, very good. And so at the end of the day, Donald will take you out, treat you well, make sure you're in bed in time. With
I need to be in bed early. As long as I'm in bed by 9 o'clock, I'm fine. You know. But it was 8 o'clock yesterday. Yeah. See, look, you're sitting there. He's like,
yeah, you'll be in bed by 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock. I think,
on my own, by the way. Thank you very much indeed. I don't want any interference in that department. But listen,
by the way, see when you were gibbering over the top of that Shepherd's Bush Empire walk around and all that shit you were saying. Right. Did that go out live?
No, of course not.
I don't know with you guys down there. No. You've got to get a grip.
Listen, we have built a media empire. Somebody's just told me this morning that Radio 2 are now pumping out where you can watch them on YouTube because they're getting so worried about what we're doing that they're all going, crikey, you know. But no, listen. But what we should say is that I've become so confused over the last couple of days because all of you guys in the business, which I'm not in, all I do is I turn up and I just talk crap, right? You guys who organise it all, we're arguing about when do we start, how many tickets have we sold, how many time, when do we have an interval, how long's the interval? So when do people need to get to the theatre? Is it 7 o'clock? Doors open at 7.
Doors open at 7, and there'll be merch on sale. The We Serve the guys will be there. Yeah. So I'm thinking 7:45 show starts. Okay. If you're watching this, you're planning something.
I'll get there about 20
half 8 or something.
So I'll get there about 20 to 8 then.
Exactly. So 7:45 there'll be a break, refreshment break, and then the second half. It promises to be an absolute belter of a show.
I'm not allowed. Apparently, I'm not allowed to drink before the half-time whistle goes. I can drink after the half-time whistle. I think that's all right, isn't it? Can I have one after that?
No, I think it's a plonk of the week you're allowed to drink. You're a couple of sherbets then, and then we've got for special guests and via Substack.
Bit of an after scenario.
We have hopefully a wee hour in an after show bar. Yeah. But of course, we both have to keep it together for the next day. And Push is working, of course, and he'll just be a moaning face. You will, mate. Oh Jesus, I can't see him. His face will look like a
somebody sensible running the company. I mean, you and I and him are running the company, but he's the only one that actually knows what he's doing. The rest of us are just kind of hanging about, going, I don't know what I'm doing.
I know what I'm doing in this end.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm glad you do. Every time I get asked...
As long as Sean Morgan's there to help,
Yeah, is he going to be there? Is Sean going to be there?
Yeah, I hope so. And the Academy are coming up trumps at the moment. That's very good. I think it's going to be a great night. And as long as you don't spend all the money in advance, and we might make a few quid. You know how good you are at that, which we'll talk about.
Don't worry, I'll give it all to charity. Don't worry.
It's all right.
My own charity,
So no, it's going to be a great
I'm really excited about it, Donald. Honestly, because it's a great pleasure to work with you, and this is the bit where I'm gonna apologise in advance for being nice to you. But it's been an absolute privilege to know you, because you know that you and I have known each other now for about 20 odd years, right?
It's been lovely.
Through good times and bad. There have been a few shaky moments from time to time. Mostly when you used to drop me at my house in Linlithgow at 5 a.m. in the Cadillac Escalade that woke everybody up because it made so much noise.
My wife was slapping you. That would wake you up.
You're the only guy who I did. Pooch, this is true. I once sat in the garage and I had Donald on one side and his lovely wife Pauline on the other. And I was saying, I can't remember what I was saying, but they both slapped me at the same time. I've never been slapped on both sides of the face by two people. It's simultaneously. It was shocking. But no, listen, it's been a real pleasure, and I'm so delighted that we're still working together.
I would like to. Fantastic, thank you, Mike, and and that's reciprocated. I love you dearly, as you know, and I just think it's a fantastic time. You were mentioning social media there earlier in the previous caller or viewer or whatever person, but we have done so well together, and that's with the help of all those subscribing and tuning in on social media. It's given you the real voice. The real common sense voice. And a similar thing with you moving on to the show, the Mike Graham and Friends. That is going to be brilliant because it's you doing this show live on stage, as opposed to, you know, and I love Jeremy and I love all that, but that would have had to been a design show, and you know, we'd have been thinking what we're going to do, we don't need to. We just need to do what we're doing right.
That's right. And a lot of people saying to me,
really proud of that.
And I'm hoping that we can do this. Is you know, can we take it around the country? Can we do more of them? Can we do them in Scotland? Can we do them in Manchester, Liverpool, Newcastle? To which I say, well, yeah, of course we can. Right.
Of course, it's just finding the dates and the time for you to do it. You know, we can't keep flogging you like a dead horse all the time. You know.
Well, you've only got about 5 years to get out of me before I go mad. So you know.
What's this? What was this pish I heard you saying earlier? I'm in my 7th decade. Christ,
well, you are in your 7th decade.
I crumpled at that.
No, but it's true. But you know, but you should celebrate that, because the fact is you shouldn't have lasted this long. Neither should I.
Well,
I should have died. I should have died in the 80s. You know, in New York. You know, I had no business still being alive.
I'm senile. I know that. Right? I got that one.
But also, Pooch wants me to mention the We Served thing. We've got the guys coming from there. Great organisation. There's a discount available if you go to We Served and you can prove that you are a member of the armed forces, a former member of the armed forces. You get a ticket for less money than everybody else, which is a great thing.
You get the password and you can get the link onto the link, the normal standard link for a cheaper ticket. It's 20 quid off this. It's not bad. That's great.
Not bad at all.
So I'm looking forward to that.
So we got merch as well. We got T-shirts. We got hats. What have we got?
Well, they were getting printed yesterday. The T-shirts. We've got the skip caps. We've got new bumper stickers. You know, because I noticed Kelvin moaning that they were too big. So we've actually got ones that fit in a bumper. Maybe
actually, because he can't afford a big. He said he got a small car.
A wee diddy car. A wee naughty car. You know, maybe they'll be able to fit around his mouth though. That'll be good. You know, and shut him up. You know.
Unlikely.
And we can sell them to him for a tenner.
Right, absolutely, yeah. He can buy the whole lot from us, you know, see if he can sell them.
There'll be some merch there. But more importantly, you know what? Bringing our friends in the industry together it's not been a challenge.
No.
People are wanting to do it. These people that you've got on the show, great guests, great, fantastic people.
Yeah. And we're all looking forward to your brother doing
No, we're not. We're not. No. I'm now impersonating myself. That's ridiculous. Right. I mean, I'm walking along. Do I talk like that? No, I don't do that.
No, of course not. That would be wrong. Absolutely wrong. It's fantastic. Listen, can't wait. So we'll see you. So you're coming down Tuesday, right?
Yeah.
So I better get my sleep in at the weekend, I suppose.
Yes. One thing we should be talking about, though, and I have to mention this because Radio 2 you mentioned there. The Radio 2 were going to do another, you know, one of these big festival weekends, and they'd picked Scotland this time.
Oh, yeah.
And they'd actually picked the same weekend that I put on Party at the Palace in Linlithgow. And they said, oh, that was just a tribute festival. And they were going to 90,000 people expected to go to Stirling on the same weekend in August, which would have wiped out our festival and wiped out about 10 others in the local area. And they hadn't even given a moment's thought to it. In fact, they said, oh, it's going to be lovely. This would be great. Well, they didn't do a risk assessment, impact assessment. They hadn't talked to anybody else. And what we did was we formed an organisation called SIFA, the Scottish Independence Festival Association, and took the BBC hierarchy to task on this.
Right.
Meetings in London. Well, yesterday they announced that they were moving it to September because
to get out of your way.
Get out of the way.
Excellent.
Which it normally is in September, and they're reducing the capacity, and there's a possibility of us getting compensation for where we are at the moment. So a great win over the BBC, and you know, to be fair to them, they listen to us. You know, these behemoths don't normally listen to you and don't give a damn about what you do. This time they did, and so I think you know, a wee cause for celebration all round.
Absolutely.
On that
That's
one,
a great
you know,
result,
fantastic, because it protects the Scottish independent festivals that are there year in, year out, and not, you know, just, you know, and have to face up to a lot of challenges, as you know, in this day and age.
Yeah.
So it was great, absolutely superb. So I'm very delighted at that. And I'm surprised. I mean, I know we're rightly going on about the appalling events in London yesterday. That's absolutely disgraceful. But you know, there is an election coming up next week, and in Scotland, it took on a new turn through the week. Well, one of these usually pointless election debates on STV, and I've never. It was murder. 6 guys bickering at each other, all talking over each other. You're going, no, is this the state of the politics we're in just now? But then Lord Malcolm Offord, turned around and said, you know, in trying to point that achievement, we should be achieving, we should be working hard and achieving, you know, sort of, in a way it was a bit of a gaffe, but it's caused massive furore up here. And when he said, I was brought up in a working class a council home in Greenock. I went to, you know, a normal school. I had to work hard all my way through. But now I've got 6 homes, 6 yachts, and I've paid £45 million in tax. Well, that is kicked off big style up here. The politics of envy have obviously kicked in by, especially with that sort of green grifting ginger whinger, they call me Throbber Ross Greer. You know,
he should call himself Ross Green, shouldn't he? He should change his name.
Well, he is Ross Green, green with envy. Green, you know, a guy that wants to take the country along with that David Polanski,
Dangerous Dave,
to hell in a handcart. You know, right enough, a handcart will be the only sort of transport left. You know, when they get their hands on the country, if they ever do. But it's quite dangerous because this guy is a guy who wants to ban prisons, close prisons, so you don't go to prison. He wants to charge everybody, you know, that make an extra council tax, 2 bans if you have a house worth, or a business office block over £1 million. So prisons, he wants to open up drugs everywhere, you know, but ban drinking in Parliament. You know, so you can't have a pint, but you can have a bag of Ket or, you know, a big line of Coke before you go into work. So this is, it's kicked off. So what a muppet, absolute muppet.
Absolutely ridiculous.
Well, I'll leave you to it.
All right. Somebody's asking, what's the machine gun bottle behind you? Is there a machine gun bottle behind you? Where is that?
Yeah, I've got a Tommy gun there. It's a Tommy gun.
The SNP come around?
Yeah, but it's filled with whiskey, so I drink it first and then fire off blanks. There you go.
Brilliant. Listen, it'll be great to see you. We'll see you on Tuesday, and we'll get you in here, obviously, on the show, and we'll do planks, plonks, and all the rest of it, and the big live show, of course, on Wednesday night.
Of course, it's election next week. Yeah, that's amazing.
Well, you'll have to vote in absentia, won't you? You'll have to do a postal vote.
Already done it.
Done it? Okay. I won't ask you who you voted for.
I'll leave you to guess.
I know exactly who you voted for. Anyway, listen, great to see you. We can't wait. We'll see you next week. Bring plenty of changes of clothes because obviously, you know...
For vomit.
We've got, vomit also, you know, we might go to some high-class places. We might go to some low-class places.
A Hamzat suit.
Yeah, exactly. All of that.
Another thing.
We'll see you then. Take it easy. Donald Cameron McLeod of the Clan McLeod coming down next week. Stand by your beds. It's going to be a nightmare. Coming up, Alan Mendoza's here. We're going to talk to him about the terrible story in the front pages this morning about the attack in Golders Green, but also about the general problem of immigration in this country. Spain literally opening its doors to 500,000 migrants, saying to them, just come in and we'll give you freedom to stay and we'll give you a visa to live here for the rest of time. Absolutely unbelievable. First, though, let's get some news with Edward Hughes.
Good morning, I'm Edward Hughes. It's Thursday, the 30th of April. Police are treating the stabbing of 2 Jewish men in Golders Green, North London, as a terrorist incident. The victims, aged 76 and 34, were attacked in broad daylight and remain in hospital in stable condition. A 45-year-old man was arrested at the scene. King Charles and Queen Camilla are continuing their state visit to the United States, including events in New York and engagements with President Trump. The visit marks a significant moment in UK-US relations. On the domestic front, many households are feeling the impact of April bill changes. Council tax, water bills, and other costs have risen for most, though energy prices have seen a welcome drop of around £117 a year for the average household under the new Ofgem price cap. In international news, the BBC has reported from a joint US-UK military base in Iraq that continues to face regular attacks amid the ongoing regional tensions and fragile ceasefire. That's the main picture from the UK today. Please remember to like and subscribe. Laters, Tigers.
Thank you very much indeed. Edward Hughes there with the news and a rather odd haircut. I think he needs to change that. And in fact, we said, did we not say if we get to 5,000 likes, we'll get him to shave it all off? Yeah. We've only got 3.7 at the moment, so please don't forget. By the way, we haven't sort of officially announced it. We hit 18 million views this morning, which is incredible after just a few months of doing this business and just this new show. So thank you very much indeed to all of you for signing. But please do also like and subscribe to the channel, because it doesn't cost you any money, but it helps us to kind of push the algorithm through and get more people to see what we're doing. 157,000 we've got now, but we'd like to get it up to 200,000, obviously, as soon as we can. Right now, though, we're going to talk to Alan Mendoza, who's from the Henry Jackson Society, of course, and a man who knows a thing or two about the state of play in this country. Alan, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
Good to see you. Obviously, very sombre start to the show this morning because of what happened in Golders Green yesterday. I mean, strangely enough, and I was saying this earlier, I was literally recording a podcast with a guy who we've had on the show several times by the name of Ariel. His name is, what's his last name? Ariel Whitman, who's, I guess what you would describe as a sort of right-wing Israeli podcaster. And we were, funnily enough, talking about Golders Green. And I said to him, you know, the trouble is there are people now living in Golders Green, a place that I know very well because I grew up very close to that in many decades ago. Jewish neighbourhood, but people live in fear there. And sure enough, about an hour after we finished the podcast, he messaged me and said, I can't believe you said what you said, because now somebody's been stabbed there. And this maniac has gone on the rampage. And my first question when I saw the story yesterday, when it said that this man was from Somalia, but he was a British national, was who the hell made him a British national? And why is he a British national? And can we please rescind that and kick him the hell out of the country?
Well, you ask a good point, Mike. I mean, this is part of the problem, isn't it? We now have a situation where, certainly in the case of anti-Semitism, a lot of it has been imported over the past 40 years by people who've been brought into this country, who don't share the values of this country, who have been they failed to integrate, largely because there's been no integration policy. They were told, come in and do what you want, basically. We'll value your values are as good as our values. Multiculturalism, whatever you believe, is great as far as we're concerned. And it's been a total failure to understand what's happened long term to this country. And the demographic change is now reaping its whirlwind on the streets of Britain. It is fundamentally unacceptable, as you have obviously pointed out, for any citizen going about their law-abiding business to feel that they are terrified to walk on our streets. The only people who should be fearful of walking on our streets are criminals, terrorists, and their like. Yeah. And that is the inversion that we need to achieve, and we're not anywhere near that right now.
No. And I mean, if you look at it, and I think we can play this again, shall we play the Keir Starmer clip? Because when you see the way the Prime Minister reacts to this kind of thing, you know why it's happening. Have a look.
Well, I've just held a COBRA meeting bringing together all the relevant partners, including the Home Secretary, the London Mayor, the Metropolitan Commissioner, to coordinate our response and to look at enhanced security. I've also spoken to CST. There is enhanced funding already in place. We need to increase that to give the level of protection that is needed. But of course, it's our responsibility to coordinate the immediate response here to this appalling attack, to ensure security is in place, to take other measures. I'm holding a meeting tomorrow with the criminal justice agencies to make sure that we can have effective and swift justice in these cases. But we do have to recognise the levels of anxiety and concern there are, that I know about, in terms of the Jewish community feeling very much exposed and vulnerable, feeling they've got to hide their identity, sometimes in the health service, sometimes at school, on the streets where they live. And it's our job to make sure that they feel safe and secure. It's our job to make sure that we absolutely deal with the roots of anti-Semitism and extremism. That is what we will do.
I mean, you can't hold meetings to stop extremism, can you? It doesn't work. You know, you need to stop the extremism at the core of where it starts, which is, i.e., don't let these bloody extremists into the country in the first place.
Well, absolutely. Step one, don't do that. And actually, we frankly have to start conceptualizing and understanding ways we can remove the ones who are here and get rid of them as well.
Yeah.
You know, this is the 21st century, Mike. You know, we're in the middle of the 21st century now. Our conceptualization of citizenship in this country was derived from a period when it was entirely inconceivable that anybody could move to the UK or want to live here and not buy into the fundamental values of the society here, of the British people, and of what the national identity was. There was a sense of this was impossible. If you were coming here, of course you would buy into it. You'd want to buy into it. What we now have are large swathes of the country where people do not believe in the values of Britain, historical values of Britain. They want to reshape our society to be more like the societies they have come from elsewhere. That tells you something's wrong with our idea of what it is to be a British citizen today. And until we address that part, we will have continuations of this going on and on and on.
Right, because you have to ask the question. I mean, we don't know this guy's name. Well, all we know is he's from Somalia. But how many more of him and his ilk are there here? And I would imagine the answer to that is sort of legion.
Yeah, and here's your point. So there are many people, of course, and now fortunately, most people who hold even reprehensible views do not act on them. But you only need a small number of people, as we're starting to see, who are willing to do so, and suddenly you end up having chaos on Britain's streets, week in, week out, attacks. And anyone who thinks, by the way, this is going to end with the Jews is mad. There is a long history of what starts with the Jews never ends with the Jews. And there is no anti-Semite in history who's gone, right, I've dealt with the Jews, I'm satisfied now, let's get on with life. They always move on to the next target.
Yeah, and that is the problem. But again, I mean, will there be any investigation as to how this man's nationality was determined? You know, who gave him British nationality? Why was he given British nationality? What questions were asked before he was given British nationality? You know, what's the process? How the hell is it working?
Yes, well, exactly. All these questions need to be asked. We've got to get to a point where we are investigating how bad decisions have been made, the conditions within which they were made, who made the decisions, of course, what criteria they were using. And then we need to extrapolate from that. What other bad decisions have been made we don't know about yet.
Yeah.
And as you pointed out a moment ago, there are probably many other people in a very similar position to him. Well, isn't it time we investigated what on earth had gone on in the migration and citizenship sort of path to things?
Right.
And are we then going to be able to have some answers on that and, crucially, action to stop it happening again? This is where we need to be at as a country. It's baffling to me, and I'm sure to you and to everyone listening, that we can be in a situation where none of us know the answers to these questions.
Yeah, I know. It is absolutely shocking. Alan, great to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Alan Mendoza there from the Henry Jackson Society. He's tweeted out previously to this, people who reject our national ideals or who subscribe to an alien religious ideology that is incompatible with life in a 21st century liberal democracy need to be removed from this country. There is no other solution. And those who tell you there is lying, either because they can't bear to admit the truth or because they are ideologically part of the problem. And of course, we see the picture, it's on the front pages this morning, of this character whose name I don't think we quite know yet, but who's from Somalia and who, as we pointed out, was given British nationality at some point in recent history. Nobody really knows why or what it's all about. But I'm delighted to say that we are joined in the studio by Laya Cunningham.
Hello,
Laya,
Mike.
very nice to see you.
Very
Welcome
nice to
to
see
the
you.
new home of the Mike Graham Show.
Fantastic home.
Thank you for coming in. This is obviously the story of the day, the story that we're sort of focused on this morning. It's a terrible, sad story. But it's a terrible indictment, is it not, of our sort of our own government and our culture and how we've allowed this all to happen. As I say, my main question this morning has been, when I found out that this guy was a British national, it was like, well, who gave him British nationality, and what was the qualification process, and how did that, and how many more of these guys are there?
Well, you know, you're British after a certain amount of time in this country. That's the problem. You know, it's a time limit as opposed to you don't qualify necessarily for it. You know,
you just become it.
You just become it.
Right.
And I think that's the problem. I think it's too easy to become it, but. I was there yesterday, Mike. I went to Golders Green and, you know, I'm born and raised in London, not far from Golders Green.
Me too. I had great, I mean, I grew up in Hampstead, so I know Golders Green really well.
Yeah, you're a North Londoner too. You know, I grew up in like Queen's Park, Kilburn area. And honestly, Mike, it broke my heart.
Yeah.
You know, because that's not the London I grew up in. And I was speaking to many people there, and so many told me they're leaving. They're actually leaving, and they're excited to leave. And these people have been here for decades. I mean, they're Londoners. They built London. Right? They are London. And the fact that they're leaving and they don't feel safe. And one woman told me that her parents, she's an Iraqi Jewish person, and her dad escaped Iraq when they were persecuting the Jews, and he brought them here. And she said, you know, he's 91, and he told her the other day, I'm sorry I brought you here.
Wow.
And she said, can you imagine that? And you're right, it's an indictment on the failure of successive Home Secretaries, successive governments. I mean, IRGC was marching the other day, Mike, side by side with the Green Party, that is polling very high in London. Imagine that they were carrying photos of the Ayatollah Khomeini, and the Greens had the audacity to say that we are marching against the evilness of the far right, while they, you know what I mean? And we've allowed El Quds to march for decades. El Quds basically is a proxy of the IRGC. We've basically told the IRGC, your propaganda is allowed on our streets. We're open to you. Come and march. Come and call death to the West. Come and call death to Jews. No problem.
Right.
And then the Muslim Brotherhood is not prescribed. I was at a Jewish Chronicle hustings yesterday with all the parties, and not one of them could answer the question, why is the Muslim Brotherhood and the IRGC not a prescribed terrorist organisation? It is madness.
Which it is.
These people
all
want
over
to
the Middle
destroy
East.
us.
But also all over the Middle
100%.
East. It is not allowed. You know, you can't go to Dubai, you can't go to Saudi Arabia, you can't go to
here,
anywhere
by the
else
way,
in the Middle East.
You rock up on a boat and you say you're part of the Muslim Brotherhood, we grant you asylum and put you in a 4-star hotel. Even though your organisation purely exists to destroy and kill us. It is self-destruction. And frankly, you know, I have been saying that we're run by cowards. I said it at a speech yesterday. I think we're run by traitors because you endanger all of us. And someone thanked me the other day for going. Someone thanked me yesterday, said, thank you for coming to speak for the Jewish community. And I thought, you know what? No, it's not a Jewish community. It's our community. It's London.
It's London,
you know, the Jewish community is my community.
Right.
It is London. We are Londoners here. And the problem is, Mike, is that we've had Labour and Green who've divvied up London into tribal and ethnic groups, you know, pandered to all their demands. Basically, they're a group, they've collected a group of grievances. You know what I mean? They've treated them all as victims.
Right.
London's Islamophobic, the UK's Islamophobic, it's systemically racist, kept them angry because that increases turnout, and said only Labour and Greens can save you. That's the problem. They haven't instilled a sense of, you know what the most unifying message is? Is a sense of pride in our country, a sense of pride and hope in our future. And that is something they've destroyed. Right? And that for me is the most unifying message for the country. And that's what we have to go back to. Because as you and I know, that's not the London we grew up in.
No, of course not.
You know, a journalist asked me, did you suffer racism when you were young because you're Muslim? And frankly, I said, you know what? Nobody cared.
Right.
Nobody knew. Nobody cared.
No.
No. I didn't even
It wasn't a thing.
No, it wasn't a thing.
I mean, I grew up, as I say,
was.
I grew up and had loads of, I went to a Catholic school, but I had loads of Jewish friends. And it wasn't, I didn't think of them as Jewish, I just thought it was my friends. It was
You're cool, you're cool. You know what I mean? You're not cool, you're not, I don't care where
We all
you're
went
from.
to Maxwell's in Hampstead, you know.
I
that
remember
was,
Maxwell's.
you know, remember
The
Maxwell's?
waffles.
The waffles.
The waffles
the
were
burgers.
so good.
Also the various different sort of burger sauces.
Yeah, I loved the
Amazing.
waffles.
It was a fantastic
That's where the
thing.
Arsenal team used to hang out all the
Yeah, that's
time.
right. Yeah,
You'd
I
go
used
and
to work.
spot them there.
Do you remember Louis' Patisserie, where I used to work in Louis' Patisserie, like from the age of 14,
Where was
making
the-
cakes on Heath Street. Right.
Yeah,
Hungarian
I
patisserie.
remember.
Brilliant
And
place.
there was a restaurant that they used to go out at night at. We used to go see them.
There was the Villa Bianca in
The
Fast,
restaurant
which
near
is
the
still
tube
there.
station, where you see them at night, kind of hang. I remember they were. It was
and
cheap
it was a
Arsenal,
great. It was a great kind of community, and you know there was Italians, there was Hungarian people, there was Romanians, there was Jewish people. I mean, it was a melting pot. It was always London was always a melting pot.
And they
but
were,
now it's different somehow
It is
because
different.
now it's
It is
people
different.
like this who would rather kill you than talk to you, and that is wrong.
But the problem is also, and just going back to that London that you and I remember, that's the London I want. There was a carefreeness to London.
Sure.
I remember going to like you know, my friend was an artist in Hackney. I'd go to her opening, everyone was spilled out on the streets.
Yeah.
I would park far away from where I was going. I wasn't worried I was going to get mugged for whatever I'm wearing.
Right.
There was a carefree joy to London. Not saying it was a utopia, but the problem is, so now they've announced some kind of anti-Semitic education in school. You hit the nail on the head. It's who we are letting into this country and who we are giving the passport to. There is no expectation of integration, assimilation. There is no expectation of love for this country. In fact, I think for the test they have to take to be British, it's like random questions that you and I couldn't answer.
Right.
I want to know what's in their heart.
Right.
You know,
and it's not about race. It's not about colour.
Zero.
It's not about creed.
No.
It's not about nationality. It's about the calibre, I think, of people. And
Yes.
there seems to be no filter on the calibre of people. I mean, we're watching the news today in Spain, where they've apparently announced, because they've got this mad left-wing government, 500,000 people are going to be granted visas. And so, of course, what's happened? There's been a massive kind of invasion from Africa because they all want to get one of these visas, because that will give them access to Europe, it will give them access to France, it will probably give them access to Britain. And we don't know who any of these people are.
But that's
the problem.
That's what happened in Germany. Remember when she let in 900,000 Syrians, you know, and that's why Hungary said absolutely not.
Right.
And I think, you know, that's part of what lost her the election. But that's exactly what happened. And what I find amazing is the governing class have endless empathy for illegal migrants. And zero empathy for the British people. Yeah. You know, zero empathy. Oh, it's not fair.
Or for
You're
British
divisive.
culture, even.
Or for British, and you know, a friend of mine is actually, she's in Dubai, and I agree with her. And listen, as an Egyptian, well, I'm a British, but my parents are, I'm like, why are we not standing up for our country, our culture, our way of life?
Yeah.
What is wrong with us? It's the best in the world.
Right. And
Let's
as an
stand up for it.
Egyptian, or Egyptian heritage, I suppose is the phrase you would use now, and a Muslim woman, I mean, how are you treated by some of these Muslim communities which you might consider to be less, shall we say, willing to assimilate
embrace Britishness,
and embrace Britishness?
So
How are you treated
I get
by
death
them?
threats from them.
Right.
I'm a kafir. You know, I'm not.
You've sold out.
I'm sold out. I'm not really Muslim.
Right.
I get, how dare you go and support the Jews? You're not a Muslim. And in terms of security threat, it's the threat from the Islamists that I worry about the most.
So that is a real problem in this country.
I mean,
isn't it?
I mean, I get threats. To be fair, I get threats from both sides. So I get threats from like those that say, "Oh, you know, we don't want to. We need to deport you. You have no place in our country." Even though it's
That's
my
just
country.
the Restore Britain people, though, right?
Well, I mean, they don't identify themselves, but I get that a lot. So I get it on both sides. You know, on one hand, I'm not allowed to be in politics because I'm not British, white, according to them. And on the other side, I get it from the Muslim that, you know, you're going to die. But listen, it's my duty to speak up, because if you don't come here with a love of country and contribute, then you have no business being in our country. This is the best country in the world. And if you don't recognise that living here, then you have no business being here. And you know what's worse? Is that these people claim benefits.
Yeah.
Right?
That's the other thing,
That's the
because
thing.
we were always told they can't claim benefits. When they come here, they're not allowed to do that. They're in asylum hotels, maybe, but they're not allowed to claim benefits. All rubbish, right? Because it now turns out that we've got figures that the vast majority of people who are now on benefits in certain aspects of the country are foreign born.
So yesterday, at the same time that this stabbing happened, I was in Feltham, at the St. Giles Hotel in Feltham that houses illegal migrants. And that is where one of the illegal migrants raped a 14-year-old girl. I went with some great candidates that we have in Hounslow. We knocked on the door, and I saw in the reception, they're all lounging, chilling.
Yeah.
You know, this was a 4-star hotel.
Yeah.
Lounging, chilling. As soon as we knocked on the door, they all scrambled, hid behind doors.
Right.
Bunch of security came, 4 or 5 security men, wouldn't even let us in. These hotels are closed to British people, open for illegal migrants, and the security they get is
and they're protected,
far
aren't they?
superior than the security the Jewish community is getting or the British public
And who's paying
getting.
for all that? We are.
The Jewish
right?
community that's attacked constantly and don't have enough security are the ones paying, amongst many others, for these men in hotels.
Yeah.
It is a disgrace. And then I went to Feltham High Street, right? And that's where 3 stabbings have happened.
Right.
And I spoke to some school kids who told me, these are school kids who are 14, 15, and they told me, we are scared. Girls, we want more police. Boys who told me, my parents are so worried. They were coming out of school And I looked around, I couldn't see police. 3 stabbings have happened.
Right.
I couldn't see any police. You know, it is a disgrace, the level of security that these illegal migrants get in their nice hotels, fully fed, fully taken care of, and the level of security the average British person gets while they pay for them.
Yeah. But that's always been my problem with the whole kind of idea of this illegal migrant business, because it's a business now. You know, Serco and other companies that get these government contracts, we're talking billions and billions of pounds. And so obviously there's a lot of people who have got a great interest in making sure that it continues, because they're all making a fortune. You know, one of them is old Fatty Soames' brother, isn't he, who runs Serco. And it's just extraordinary how much money is going out of the exchequer to look after these people, and how many people are making a fortune as a result of it.
It is shocking, and I was on GB News with Barry Gardner, and he was bragging that the government has spent 300 million housing veterans. You couldn't tell me.
I saw that.
Yeah, you couldn't tell me, and I said.
And you kept asking him which houses have been built.
But
right?
also, I'm like 300 million. Are you joking? You spend billions on illegal migrants, and you're bragging about 300 million. You couldn't even tell me how many houses. And listen, Mike, in London, 15 boroughs in London are sanctuary boroughs, including Westminster, right? Yeah. And that means that it says that we're going to prioritise refugees. And as you and I know, I don't know if your viewers know, but you land on our shores illegally, you say the word asylum, you become an asylum seeker. Yeah. Once that asylum claim is granted, you become a refugee.
Right.
And as you and I know, 80 to 90% are granted. And even if they're not granted, we learn that they're not removed.
Right.
Only 1 in 6 are removed. So what's the point of refusal?
Right.
And if they're not, so if they are granted, they go to the top of the social housing list because the Tories and Labour have deemed them most in need, as opposed to veterans who sleep rough.
Yeah. Or indeed just ordinary families who need
ordinary families, British families, right? Yeah,
kind.
exactly. Yeah. And if they're not granted, they still have access to taxpayer-funded housing, so they're not destitute. It makes me so angry. It makes me speechless.
The whole thing is sort of backwards, isn't it? The whole thing is the backwards priorities of all of this stuff. It's a bit like, you know, the thing that enraged me last week was when I discovered, because I didn't know it, and I don't know whether you did, that people on universal credit are allowed access to Tower of London, London Zoo. You can go there. I mean, I grew up as a child here, earning my keep from the age of 14. I've had 4 children. You know, we used to go to the Londons. We used to spend a fortune taking them to places like that.
And it would be, you'd plan it.
£100.
You'd plan it because you'd be like, you know what, we can do this once every 6 months.
Yeah.
Because it's really expensive. Agreed. Same with me. And
if you have to come into London from, say, I don't know, Tunbridge Wells, that's another £100 on the train for 4 people. You know, it's ridiculous. And suddenly, and I said to my kid's mother, I was like, next time we go to Pizza Express, there'll be a family over there going, can you just pay our bill, please? Because, you know, you can pay for yours and you can pay for ours as well. Yeah. What's going on?
I mean, those discounts should be for working people, if there are.
There shouldn't be any discounts.
No, there shouldn't be any discount, but you shouldn't reward. You should reward work.
Listen, I worked in America. I don't know whether you've spent time there, but I worked in America for 10 years. And in America, you get what you earn, right?
Yeah.
And people work because they need to. You know, for example, a lot of people get jobs because they get healthcare with a job. And so they need to have a job. You can't just be on the sponge for the rest of your life. And in this country, you can do absolutely everything without ever having to work.
I know.
And it's wrong, isn't it?
I know. Well, they reward. They don't reward work, do they?
No.
They don't.
And I don't actually blame individuals. If you're a family of 4, right, and you're making equivalent of £50,000 a year, why would you bother going to work? What's the point?
Well, exactly that.
There's no incentive.
No, there's no, and it's a sad state of affairs. And then they say, oh, you know, we've raised the minimum wage, but you can't magically raise the minimum wage without raising growth, right? Because employers
just cost money.
Well, employers do 3 things. They either hire less, and you've seen it. We do have youth unemployment because the first jobs to go are entry jobs, or they raise prices, and you see that.
Well, my son's at University of Manchester, right? He's got a part-time job in a sort of a venue, which sort of not quite a nightclub, but a sort of music venue. And as soon as they raised the national insurance, as soon as they raised the minimum wage,
he's the first one to lose his job.
He got less hours.
Well, exactly
he's still
they
there,
reduce hours.
But
exactly
they said, right, instead of coming in for 6 hours, you go in for 4, and so he's making less money.
And what's amazing is that they increased minimum wage. Right, and then they saw that it led to youth unemployment. So then they've created, we're going to spend a couple of $100 million on youth unemployment to counteract the damage we've done. But that's the problem. So they just don't understand business. I speak to so many businesses, Mike, who are spending more time complying with the excessive regulation than they are on growing.
And it's getting worse, isn't it?
We've literally regulated growth out of the economy.
Right.
I mean, over the past 30 years, we've had thousands and thousands of pages of regulation. It's constant for businesses.
Yeah.
It's too much.
Right.
You know, we just need to understand that without businesses, we have no growth.
There's no. But this is the thing: the Labour government doesn't seem to understand it because none of them have worked in business. None of them have ever been in the private sector. They think money grows on trees. They literally think that they can just milk it from you because you're somebody who's got money. So we'll just take some of that and we'll give it to these people over here who haven't got any. But they don't understand that you can't. If you're in the public sector, you're not actually paying tax, because you're being given money to pay tax by the people who actually pay tax.
Yeah, I mean, Nigel said something very good. There's two people in this country, those that work and those that don't.
Right.
That is the true separation.
Yeah.
The problem is the Labour government treat growth as a slogan.
Yeah.
They don't understand that growth doesn't come from the
They
government.
think growth is investment by them.
By them, exactly that.
So like public money given to somebody to do something. That's not growth.
No, that's not growth.
Right.
Growth comes from the risk takers, the businesses, getting people to keep more of what they earn.
Right.
Cut business rates.
Yeah.
Well,
we
have
moved in here, right?
Street.
We launched this new project. Pooch is sitting over there. He built this entire edifice that you can see, which is brilliant. But, we didn't even think about it until we got the bill for the business rates. We were like, crikey.
It's unbelievable.
Because we had already paid the rent up front. We'd given them 4 months in advance or something like that. We sort of worked out how we could do it. And suddenly this business rates bill comes in and you go, Christ.
It's unbelievable.
And that's only the first quarter.
I know.
Right? And it's thousands. And you're like, what are you trying to do? Just strangle us at birth?
Yeah, but
let us make some money and then take it.
Yeah.
But don't
just give
charge
us a chance.
Yeah, before we've even made any.
Right? But that's,
luckily we're doing very well, so don't worry about it. But I'm probably paying for several families of Romanians, living down the road. But the good thing about this as well is that we can talk about the election because we're not governed by Ofcom. So
That's
I know
great.
that you're probably going to say, I can't talk about the election because you have to be careful. We don't have to be careful.
That's great.
So now you can say whatever you want about the upcoming election, which is just a week away. It's going to be, to all intents and purposes, we're told, an absolute barnstorming a day for reform. Are you looking forward to it? What's it going to mean for London? The Greens are going to be big in London, I think, aren't they?
So
worryingly,
the Greens worryingly are going to be big in London, and I'm going to say this, that the Greens worry me a lot because they do pander to the Islamists.
Yeah.
You have, as I said, the Greens are a collection of grievances.
Yeah.
They just want to keep people. They want to treat people as victims. They're always pitching. Their one policy, right, that encompasses all of the Greens is we're going to tax the billionaires.
Yeah. Right.
And what they don't realise is if you tax the wealth creators, there'll be no wealth.
Right.
They'll just leave.
But also, it will be the usual kind of lefty ridiculousness where they go, all right, we're going to tax the billionaires. And then they go, the billionaires have gone. Oh, now we're going to tax the millionaires. Oh, they've all gone. Oh, now we're going to tax the people that make 100,000. Oh,
no,
hang
exactly.
on. And then we're going to tax all the people that make 50,000.
And that's
so
what
it just keeps coming down,
that's
doesn't
what
it?
If you shrink the tax pool at the top, to shrink the top, the bottom pays.
Yeah.
Right, and that's what we're seeing now, effectively, when the non-doms, when we had the biggest exodus of millionaires.
Yeah. The worst place to be right now in London, it seems to me, is to be making about between 50 and sort of 70,000 pounds a year because you're getting nailed on tax, right?
So the areas that we're going to do well, it's fantastic support. And what's really interesting about Reform supporters, because obviously I've campaigned for the Conservatives before, is they're so passionate about the country.
Yeah.
They're not campaigning for reform, they're campaigning for the country, for the city.
Yeah.
Whereas the Conservatives, you feel, campaign for their party. There's an excitement and there's a passion there. And I've always said this, we've got over 1,500 candidates in London, and they're not kind of, you can't herd sheep because everyone in reform is there for a reason. They're passionate about the country, and they want to do good. And we get people honking in the street, reform. I get stopped as a male candidate by all kinds of people, like not your traditional reform supporters. I must say there is, sometimes I knock on someone's door and they'll be like, you know what, I would vote for you.
Right.
But I feel you're anti-immigrant. So, and I want to explain to people in London, we're not anti-immigrant at all. It is not that. It is anti-illegal migration, and it is anti-people who come here and want to destroy us and want to just take. If you come here to contribute and you love the country, then we're all for you.
I mean, you're anti this kind of immigrant.
Of course.
The Somalian British national.
That's a criminal.
Yeah.
You know, we don't want criminals in our country. And so that's been a bit of in some areas, you know, because
and
there's
what
no
about
nuance.
the people who would say, because you're an intelligent woman, you're educated, you've been around the world, and yet you will be branded by some people as a kind of, you know, either a racist or a you know, a kind of a right-wing thug or something like that. You know, there are still people who think
I get that a lot.
of reform as this kind of, you know, horrible entity that really doesn't want to do anything nice for anyone. Do you struggle with that? I mean,
I only get that when I face a Labour person on TV, or a Green person. I don't get that on the streets.
Okay.
You know, I haven't had that personally at all in London. Actually, it's been all across London, even places where you wouldn't think. It's been very positive. I think people feel that reform is fighting for them. Just simple things, you know. For instance, in Westminster Council, Mike, people, the Tories now have come out with this big policy that they're going to ban 20 miles per the blanket 20 miles per hour. They brought it in 2019 in Westminster Council. They didn't have to. They brought it a blanket 20 miles per hour across the council, and what we've seen is more people are getting done for 23 miles per hour than they are for speeding on the motorway.
Yeah.
You know, good policy protects people, bad policy punishes people. And this is not even, it's literally, it's punishing just drivers. It's not punishing dangerous drivers. It's literally punishing drivers. I know, like on Bayswater Road, if you know it, it's very difficult to go at 20 miles per hour.
Yeah.
I have to set it on my car.
It's insane.
It's insane.
Well, Westway as well. I mean, I used to go, we used to have an office in a studio in Ealing, and I'd go out on Westway. And my sister, actually, who lives in America, came back and she had some friends to go and visit. And she's like, what's going on with Westway? She's like, it used to be 70 miles an hour. It's now 30. And you're kind of driving and you feel as though you're in fact, I was in Connecticut.
I'm more focused on the mileage, how fast I'm going than the street.
I was in Connecticut with her, and she was like, and we went to see my mother before she died. And I was driving back to her place, and she's like, why are you driving so slowly? I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, you were driving
I know.
and she's like, it's a 60-mile-an-hour road, because you get conditioned to sitting there, like, and you've got, I mean, I've got Maserati, right? It's not meant to go at 20 miles an hour.
No.
Sorry, it's supposed to go a bit faster.
Listen, it should be on tight residential roads and by schools, but on major roads like Bayswater Road, and I had the joy of, as a prosecutor, of doing traffic court sometimes. And listen, I've prosecuted, you know, domestic abuse, and it's in traffic court that you see grown men break down in tears because they've lost their license, because they've gone at 23 miles per hour.
That's ridiculous.
4 times, they've lost their livelihood, you know, they can't take their kids to school, their mum's ill, their wife, and you sit there and you go, why?
Yeah.
You know, these are not dangerous drivers. These are not dangerous drivers. They're just drivers.
No, I mean, I know a couple of people who've given up driving in London because they got so many tickets, they were just like, can't do
From
it.
From LTNs to 23 miles per hour to ULEZ to congestion, you know. The motorist is a cash cow, and one of Reform's policies is, you know, we don't think the car's a bad thing. You know, I've got loads of kids. I need a car. My mum's elderly. She needs a car. For God's sake, just let people drive their car. You know, but there has to be a sensible approach to it.
Totally.
My mum, who's 90, is not going to get on a bike right now.
Right.
You know,
I know.
And you know,
it's mad. It's completely mad.
And yeah, so I think in that sense, people are recognising that London's not really working for them.
No.
But across the country, I mean, I think we're going to do so well. Midlands, you know, even the home counties. Like, I just think, you know what I tell people? People tell me, I tell people, you've always voted. You know, I knock on the doors sometimes, and people tell me, yeah, you know, I'm a Tory, or you know, my dad was a Labour supporter, and I go, you're happy with the state of the country? And they say no, you know, and they list everything that's wrong with it, and I go, but if you always vote the same, what changes? Right, and that's what. Try something new.
And this is the first time, really, nationally, that you can do it, because it hasn't really happened before now.
No,
Reform has suddenly become a national party. Over the last year or two.
And I think we are the national party, because, as I said, I don't think politics divides against right or left anymore. I think it's issue based.
Yeah.
You know, so people recognise certain issues. They don't, and I think it's wrong to say you're left wing or you're right wing. It is. That's why we're, you know, Labour supporters and Tory supporters are coming over to us, because it's issue based. You know, and the issues are, I think people fundamentally might want just keep more of their money.
Yeah.
Be able to own a home, safer streets, left alone. Really, you know, get out of my way. I don't know if you saw, but the Conservatives are making huge hay about banning social media for under 16-year-olds. how is that going to be implemented? You know, how are you going to prove someone's 16? Does that mean I have to give my passport now when I log on to social media? You know, I don't want big tech having my documents.
No.
And that's the only way to do it. You know, and that does pave the way for digital ID. And what happens when you're 16? You're suddenly mature.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? I mean, 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds.
And also, you know, you've got kids. I've got kids. I mean,
they don't understand VPNs
When
as
my
well.
children were under 15, they could do anything. I mean, they could literally run rings around whatever safeguard you want to put in.
Way more
right?
than any politician.
They know what they're doing.
No, and people share passwords.
Of course.
You know, you've got what about VPN? They don't even address VPNs.
Yeah.
It's all virtue signaling. And for me, I think it's a sad day when we have to give our documents, our ID documents, to access the internet, because that is surveillance.
Yeah, totally. And you know that they're going to do something bad with it. At the end of the day.
Why should I? I've had anonymity the whole time. I don't want to be able to access Instagram or Twitter and give my documents. Why should I?
Exactly.
You know, you want to post? Show me your passport.
Yeah.
That's basically what's happening
Right.
now.
I know. Shocking. Layla, great to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you so
for
much for
having
coming
me.
in.
Great
We're out
setup.
of time, unfortunately. We could do this all day. It's 9:38 already, by the way. We're supposed to have switched over, haven't we?
Sorry.
Because we've got, no, it's all right. Don't worry. We've got a new. We're starting a new channel, so we're going to actually have not just me, because people can't listen to me all day. I mean, they could, but we're going to hire a few other people as well. So, shall we switch over to UK Live, which is the new channel? I would do it on my iPad, but I've run out of juice apparently.